He's a
You could
conditional.
take-
He's a
Because he's got the
conditional.
three.
He's got the three.
He's got three
He
more
doesn't
to go.
have, he's got 3 more to go.
So the salary range,
And he's the minimum you can hire.
Okay.
If he didn't have those, you can't.
You can't.
salary range is 80,304
Okay,
to 104,358.
okay. Okay, thank you. That's good. Good to know.
If you're looking for additional expenses, we never really have this in advance, the weights and measures. We put in 22,000. We don't have an exact contract from them yet. So Amy, there might be a few $100s on that line. So let's wait and see what happens.
Yeah, it looks like it depends. If we have someone that's more experienced, we're gonna be paying, a little bit more. With someone with less that needs more training, we need to pay more in the training bucket and less in maybe in the salary bucket. Right?
Just a quick question, not to get too far off field here. So Vern, assuming if we hired Vern, he's got the 3, so he's conditional. He has how long? A year?
18,
18 months to take the 3. But is it better for us to get him to do it up front so we know he's go through it and then we have a full commissioner? That's my, or should we wait longer? I mean, stretch it out. I don't know what's involved in the test. That's something that can be done.
I mean, we were just talking about that today, the amount of
Preparation.
that, yeah, those preparations.
Yeah, I mean, I know,
Plus his own schedule of being
Yeah.
our commissioner at the same. time.
yeah, that I
Some of
understand.
these guys take whole time
Okay.
just to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is, this is not like, a driver's test, a
Right.
couple hours and you can go apparently park. But, yeah, okay.
they're not easy unless you're.
No, I
very
didn't
good at
expect,
taking it.
well, no, I mean, you have, and all the codes now include we've adopted a lot of the European codes, right?
The thing is, the last 3 tests, one's gonna be illegal.
Yeah.
One's gonna be more, the management part, and then you
Right.
have the one that includes the plumbing, electrical, and all the
No,
inspections.
no, there's a lot there. I understand that.
And then
I-
actually, just, I didn't, on the, training, that includes also plumbing, electric.
Okay.
And I believe we're lucky enough where our alternates, for both get it from another town.
Okay.
But otherwise, we would have to pay that. You
Right.
can't deny
Okay.
it. They weren't getting it paid from the town.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess what I was looking at is whether, we had a deficiency that, really needed to be filled immediately, or whether we have time to try and squeeze 2,000 from somewhere else. And it's like we have
Yeah.
time. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right. And then we gotta get you some reams of paper, have your supplies for the office.
Yep.
Again, if you know, if we supplies, we can steal them somewhere.
And then right before we finish up, I just wanted to ask you about, just throwing out there the revenues. I mean, do you see, is there anything that you foresee? Right now, it looks like you've been doing really well with all the money you've been bringing in here. We'd like local inspection receipts, and we're projecting it to be 425,000. So it's going up. It was 400 last year. So is there, before you leave us, I want to make sure if there's anything that you have to add, or, want to think that we're going to be okay, or do you think we need to look at different things, or?
Check some other towns like that. You can't be the nice guy and keep that revenue going.
Okay,
Because it's easier for me to drive by and see Joe on this side of the street doing a roof without a permit. And the other poor gentleman across the street or family had to pull a permit or builder. And I'm not afraid to stop because it's fair, treat everybody equal. Right.
yeah,
But it's a lot easier if I would just driven by.
yeah,
Trouble is then escalates and that person got away with it once, you're gonna do it again and again and again. And
so because.
just make sure you find somebody that's gonna,
Well,
that's not afraid, you're not gonna make a
Yeah.
lot of friends in
Yeah.
that position, and,
the
but
towns
it's fair. It's fair.
using Google Earth to see people who added to the house dying.
Right,
So it is gonna be on Vern for him to
Yeah,
initiate these things.
or whoever, right.
Or whoever.
Enforce-
to-
enforce
to
fairness.
Enforce these.
Yep.
yeah,
Against-
Just out of curiosity, looking forward, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of new stuff coming into town right now. There's not a lot on the planning board side. Do you think the estimate on increasing inspections is realistic, or?
I've been saying every year, we weren't gonna out to, I think we did about 455 this year,
Okay.
or last year, and so we outdid it by 20,000 again, and we keep
Okay.
doing it, so.
All right,
yeah,
But new growth is definitely projected to be down.
Right.
So,
I mean, there's also, I mean, there might be reno. I mean, sometimes when there's not new growth, there's a lot of reno at that point, so maybe we'll make it up there as long as we catch it.
And I think as Tommy's pointed out, enforcement has been a big part of
Mhm.
those revenues. Like, we tie a lot of the success on that line item to him and Dee Dee, who over the year also will pull over. It's
Yeah.
just someone working without permit, even while she's working in treasurer's office, I don't think that she will stop from doing that. So, these are important things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And other departments, because we work so well, everybody here together. And I don't want to throw them under the bus, but other departments will call, say, hey, is there a permit for such and such an address?
Mhm.
And which is very helpful.
Mhm.
Police everybody, you
Yeah.
know, because it's only fair.
It's only fair.
Right.
And thank you, by the way,
Well, thank you.
for your,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
for your service.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks a lot.
It's your last, PPP.
Yep.
No, awesome.
Thank you.
You guys think, awesome.
Still lives here.
And Cheryl is on that.
Cheryl is on that?
She's the assessor.
Okay. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, how are you? I just have a couple things. I just wanted to bring to your attention. Again, like Tommy, I know there's cuts and everyone's being affected by it. But I wanted to bring to attention two of the cuts that were made on the assessors is the first would be the software maintenance. We had put in there, requested 18,000 and it got cut. The problem with that is the CAMA program that we use, Vision, is going up in 2026. And that is a program that is used to provide the bridge for the assessors to bridge to the collectors so the billing can get done. So part of the problem is I'm going to end up having to pay these bills. So these invoices that come in from Vision and these other programs that we need in order to make the billing happen so we get our revenues in. So I'll pay them and I'm hoping at the end of the year, I'm not in the red on it, which I think I'm going to be, and that's why I want to make you aware of it now. So come the end of next fiscal year, I'm not coming to you looking for money and you're questioning why. So I'm going to put it out there now that there's not going to be enough money to pay for this program to do the billing. And then the other one is mileage. It was reduced. The mileage that is accounted for, the 500, has always in history been used. That mileage, it's used so the assessors can go out and do inspections for permits, abatements, and then new growth and go out for sales. And that's what we do. And then to go to meetings and training and stuff. So that's what that's for. So to cut that is really gonna be hard to make that happen. And being new to the community, I've talked with my board and they are in agreement that in order to familiarize myself with the area, it is beneficial to go out and learn all the different areas. And when I get questions from residents, go out and see what's going on. So to not have these funds for mileage is gonna really be hard to be doing that. So those are just two items I just wanted to bring to your attention that are kind of important for our office. And if there's anywhere that we could be refunded for those, it would be beneficial. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. So just because I was looking for the page at the same time, I apologize.
No worries.
You talked about the software maintenance, you talked about the supplies and the mileage.
No supplies, just mileage.
Just the mileage.
Yep.
The contracted services, did you mention that? What is that?
That is, so we get ready. So as I explained in budget meetings with Mike and Linda when we met previously, you guys have been very lucky because Dan, it's unfortunate that I'm coming in to a position that someone's been in for almost 40 years. So he had a lot of knowledge a lot of experience, and the experience that you get as an assessor is only acquired from doing it over years and years and years, because it's a position that is done. What you do is not done on a daily basis. You do something once, like for right now, I'm doing abatements for excise tax. That's a big push right now. And then we have the abatements for real estate that you only do that once a year. And then we go out and do our valuations, we check properties. So what I'm getting at is it's only done once a year. So you almost have to redo everything or relearn it every year until you really get to know what you're doing. So Dan had that down. He knew exactly what he was doing. And I'm going to be honest, he did a lot of assessors throughout this area hire a consultant to help them set their values, do their personal property, do data collection for them. And Dan did it all. And that's a lot. And we're going to be coming into a reval year, and that entails going out and reevaluating all our properties throughout the community and adjusting where necessary. So in order for that to be done, we're going to need a consultant to come in and help us do that. So that's what that's for. And I have talked with Mike and Linda about that.
Then, when Dan was here, we also had an assistant, Janice, I believe, right?
Yeah.
We have not, are we, is that at this point, are you just going with a consultant and not an assistant, or is that still out there? Are
No.
we still doing an assistant?
Yes, it is still in the budget to have an assistant. It had been requested from Dan to up the hours to 16 hours, and that was cut down to the 10. So that was put back down. So I was going to be talking, we're going to be looking to bring someone in. What's beneficial about that is when I do have to be out of the office, it's closed and there's no one there to help residents when they come in and take care of their needs. Whereas if I have someone in there that can answer the phone for me, and there's many times right now I'm sitting doing stuff and I said I could be benefiting by having someone here helping me with this instead of me doing it. But I'm spending the time taking care because it needs to get done. So I'm doing it, but I would benefit by having that person. So I was going to be talking to Lauren about getting someone in for me because I have to start my inspections. I'm at that point.
You said Dan was doing the contracted services. So was he spending more hours a week doing it, or?
I can't speak for Dan. I don't know what he did or the hours that he spent in the office. All I know is he did do everything. But like I said, it's a lot, especially I'm in this field 3 years and I'm coming in. I do have my certification, but there, as I had explained, there's things that I haven't done yet and I'm still learning how to do it. And having someone come in and help with this, that was the reason that we put it in the budget to take care of it.
And this person or this company, over what period of time will they be contracted? Is it just a single year contract, or is it something that's going to be year in and year out?
Well, right now it's in the budget. It's going to have to go from from July of 26 it'll go into the year 27. Because like I said, what we're doing, and we'll see where we're at, we have to get ready for a recertification with the state. So we have to make sure that all our values are addressed. And I do know Dan and I have talked that we have to revalue our commercial and go through everything on that. So, and that's a process. So, and that is not anything I'm going to be able to take care of myself. I will need someone in there to help me do that.
But previously Dan was able to do it himself.
Yes, Dan did do it. But like I said, Dan has 40 years experience under his belt. So that's why he was able to do it.
Do you foresee this being an annual?
I don't know. As I told Linda, I foresee us probably, depending on how it goes, we take it year by year. I mean, but for right now, just to make sure we're ready for our recertification in a couple of years, we have to make sure that our values are where they need to be.
When is the recertification?
2028.
Okay, so it's not imminent.
Mm.
It's in a few years.
Yeah, but you have to build up and get everything right. You can't wait to the last minute because it's a process.
This contract, is it based on hours or how is this contract set up?
It depends on the pieces that you want the contractor to do, whether they are gonna value personal property, commercial, real estate for us, or, go out and do data collection. So they gave us a little bit of everything, just so we had the full, menu of what and pricing for what we needed for this. And based on what we found, that's how we came up with this value.
So how did Dan do it before?
And
I'm
what,
just curious, there must have been a methodology that was, I'm in real estate and it's pretty, depending on what you're valuing, there's pretty much very consistent ways of different businesses, how you value them.
right,
And municipalities, I know you guys use a different system, but I'm guessing most municipalities have a consistent way of valuing a piece of property.
yeah, it is. But it's the time consuming, it's the inputting. And like I said, I can't speak for Dan. I don't know what he did or didn't do. I spent all of 6 days with Dan. That's all I had with him to train and learn that off. It like just get familiar with that office. I had 6 days with him. So fortunately he is willing to, I can call him and ask him questions, but it's just, like I said, you can't ask everything all at once. It's as it comes, and that's how it's been going. So, whereas people, the consultants, that's all they do. They would sit and they would put all our personal property in for us, and they would put the values in and set the values as well as commercial. They would revalue for us, make sure that we're where we need to be for state standards and take care of that for us.
So they would do, you're saying that consultant would do all that for you?
Yes,
And they would do all that for the $20,000?
yes, yes.
And if it was hourly, because that's what I would, just like Shardul was asking, if it was hourly and the amount down below that we're short on some of these others is, we're talking, it wasn't a big difference, so maybe would you find it beneficial to lower that 20,000 by $1,000 or $2,000 and put it into a different line item? Is that something that you would feel more comfortable with, or is what you see is what you like to see? I'm just saying, I'm asking if you rather see it in a different spot.
I would have to go revisit what I received from the subcontractor that we had based this budget number on and see exactly where we're at with numbers, because to redo all that is very important for the recertification, and I would not want to shortchange myself on that. And I know, and like I said, the software is as important. So, I don't want to take from one and not have for the other. So that's why I'd have to revisit that, and then I'd be able to answer your question on that.
You have the flexibility, Cheryl, to move between the expense line items, even as you
Okay.
even as you get into the fiscal year.
Okay,
So we would hope that what isn't needed in one would cover the other. Did you actually have a price on the software maintenance, or you just know generally that it's going up?
no, I actually have a price. Yeah, we received, Dan had requested it and it came in an email that we received from Vision, and it said as of July 1st of this coming fiscal year that these will be going up. And the values are accounted for in that
Okay.
budget number that was put in there.
Okay, by $3,000 then, huh? That's,
Yeah,
wow. Okay,
yeah. So I just wanted it to be put out there so everyone was aware of where we're at with that.
okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
thank you. Well,
It would be important to know, I don't know if it is or not, but just a reminder, if you didn't already know, the Board of Assessors oversees Cheryl, and they oversee the budget. We can make reductions where necessary, but the actual oversight to the assessor and deciding the hire and all that stuff falls under them. That's one of the things that I think the Fall Government Study is looking at as to whether that position should be folded in as a
Mhm.
appointed person as opposed to, they are technically appointed, but they're appointed by an elected board, so it's the same thing as being elected essentially. Her
So,
assistant is actually under regular town manager.
oh, that's what I was
Which is
gonna
why
ask.
we were able to reduce the hours.
Mm.
And it was one of the first things that we kind of cut back.
How about the consultant?
The consultant was actually, we were considering, that was one of the things that Linda and I had, it's the first thing that we kind of went after, which was like, why do we need this? We have an assessor situation. She was doing a great job explaining it, so I didn't want to jump in, but one of the things that she said to us was, and she didn't say it exactly the same way tonight, was Dan does way more than a normal assessor would do in most other communities around this size, meaning he took on that kind of work when it's not normal for that to happen. So we were struck oddly the same way, like we're hiring a consultant to do this work, but it's difficult for us to wrap our mind around. We don't really understand how the assessing works. Ultimately, it's very cyclical. So, they only do one thing one time a year, and it's just constant, working on it until it's done. This was one of those things, and that's how she explained it to us.
she also told us the advantage of having an outside assessor consultant at this level is they sometimes see things differently than you do from the inside, and that they are able to provide some insights into how into valuation of various properties that in-house assessors don't always see. So I guess it's a bit of a back and forth with the assessor and the consultant, which is educational for the.
But I would think, they would be taking continuing ed and seminars and other things that would kind of provide that as part of their kind of ongoing training,
Mhm.
right? Like those are things that are, I guess, shared between most in terms of their industry or their profession.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a standard that they all must have to follow, because it has to be defendable in some manner by the state, or even if when somebody goes and has an abatement.
Right, I looked at it very similar to the building, to Tommy, right? They gotta stay up to date with all this stuff, so they should,
Right.
when they gotta learn the new code when it comes out and know the new code from that point forward kind of thing.
Mhm.
But again, we did what we could with it, reduced it where we thought we could. I actually don't think the Board of Assessors agrees with the cuts that we made. But
I think my question would be, is this gonna be a reoccurring?
I think
For the 20?
Yeah,
Contract.
yeah.
Eventually in time, it'll probably go away with the more experience she has of how to doing
that's
the
kind of
position.
I
Yeah.
thought she was gonna be going with it, which is basically, as soon when I learn enough, like it'll be reduced. But she didn't actually say that, so
Yeah, she said we'll check it year to year.
Because we don't we have like a 5-year cycle, don't we, or
Well, so
something?
that was the other thing that I don't think she got into, which is, that cost in particular is not a normal cost. This is something that only happens once every, what did you say, every 3 to 5 years, whatever.
We should turn
I
on.
know.
I thought the reassess, the values are every 5.
That's what I think
Yeah.
it is. And so I think that there'll still be a contracted services cost, but whether or not it'll be that much just to do the normal annual stuff, I think.
Cause my question is that the values, they're already existing values. And then all you're doing is the incremental change,
Appreciation, right?
whether you're going up or you're going down. So it's not like you have to redo, you're not starting from zero. You're, Dan built something, and that would just be my question. I think she's back.
She's,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Cheryl?
All right,
It's not a big-
Listening.
we usually don't have somebody back on the same show, but this is good, yeah.
Yeah, I think the question
Quite
was,
long way.
is this cost related to kind of like that 5-year reassessment, or is this? Like, I think the few questions are, is this for you as a kind of a newer person to catch up? Is this part of any specific? I guess, not routine work that needs to get done. I think the concern from, I speak for the finance committee, is that you're adding roughly almost, about, I don't know what it comes out to in terms of in terms of your 25 budget, you're adding almost 18% of your budget towards this one line item, which is pretty significant. And I think our concern is that, is this going to be a continuation? Is this something that's going to continue to be there year in and year out? Or is this a one year thing that might be related to, again, this reassessment or whatever?
Right, like I said, we go year to year with it. It's definitely was put in there because Dan and I had talked, and not being as experienced as he is, I have not set values. I haven't done that. So it's like I need someone in there to help me do that to benefit the town. And yes, you made the comment that the values, pretty much everything's set. It's just a matter of going up or down with it or whatever. But what these consultants do is we run reports based on sales and the different ratios and where we are with stuff. And sometimes things have to be, you have to change things at a certain percentage. So you go through all the classifications and you take care of doing it that way. So is it going to be a yearly thing? I can't answer that question. I don't know year to year. Right now, I'm just trying to focus on what's in front of me and know that right now, I know this is something that is going to be needed in this office. And a couple of years down the road, maybe it won't be, but I can't answer that question today. I don't know. I don't want to say no or yes, because I don't know.
I'd like to point out that even if it is a $20,000 item, and you mentioned the percentage, but also that nonetheless, the increase from 25 to 26 is only 10,800. So we have taken 10,000 from other parts of the budget. There has been 10 hours of assistance. They wanted 16. We already took 6 hours away from Cheryl, and she hadn't even gotten started. So that we did go through there and cut things pretty close. And we certainly don't want to shorthand her too much more in her first year. You should stop in and see what she's done with the office. It's pretty. Amy has seen it.
No,
It's
understood.
pretty amazing. She's really, really got the place organized and has put a lot of that time in. So, as you'll see with other budgets, and I'm thinking particularly now of the software maintenance one, where she says it's going to be 18,000, even though you gave me 15. That this is one of those areas that I kind of consider one of the potholes we may have to fill in the fall. That we, in all budgets, we said, well, maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure we fully realized that it would be that much of an increase, but we took from where we could in everybody's budget across the board and thought, if we made a mistake, we will have probably some amount to give away in the fall. I'm not saying we're going to, we'll try and meet all requests, but when we made an obvious mistake in someone's budget in that they're going to have to spend the money whether we gave it to them or not, that's what I call, we'll fill that in the fall, hopefully with what free cash we have. So there is a second round at that level to deal with at the special town meeting in the fall. So we'll check in with you on that later, Cheryl.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Not,
Do we have anyone else in the 100 series?
Not tonight.
Okey-doke.
That's for I think we have one more 100 probably for you on the 9th. I believe.
Okay.
And that's just, I believe, select board and human resources would like to come talk to you. But other than that,
Okay,
that should be all for the 100. We can go on to the fire department. Fire department. You want me to go first? You guys chat.
see, they. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Our next guest.
No.
What's that Andy guy? Is he here?
He is,
Hi, Andy.
God dang.
oh, he will be back. He's gonna, whatever he misses, he's going to be jumping in on the DPW meeting. Because they're doing some voting. And then whatever he misses on us, he's going to watch. So he's gonna get your whole spiel, because no voting tonight for us. They're voting, but not us. But we want to hear what you have to say.
I was just wondering what, has the latest been added to?
We're working from what was recommended in the book here.
It's just taking off the total though, so you want to make adjustments between line items, you can just.
Okay.
Ladies.
Do you want to start with fire?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have what was requested. It's all, there's really nothing substantial. It's all bare bones. It's all contracts. It's all, you know, the union number. Actually, I don't think we've added the union number that's coming up. So this reflects what we see for FY 25, not. That's not the right.
We have, that would be along with all the other budgets, we have the large item in the select board budget, which is an estimate of increases of that nature in all budgets.
For the union contracts.
So again, as I stated at the last meeting, the full-time salaries includes deputy chief and then basically half of the salaries of all the full-timers minus my firefighter EMS coordinator who's fully in the ambulance budget. Again, overtime just reflects those increases from the 1-year contract. Inspection and duty wages, that's our call force. So factoring having the, the full-time staffing, it's decreased a little bit, but this is usually the buffer for the overtime if it goes over. So we're seeing, there's quite a bit of overtime for vacations and folks being out. But that usually I have enough to cover that with those lines.
Anybody in the inspections, because
They labeled it inspections and station duty wages, but it's actually the call force hours going to calls.
okay,
It's been that way since the inception of the prior to my time, so they never really changed
because
it.
I'm thinking of inspections as, a revenue for the town of what you guys do to all the commercial.
Yeah, so it's like their training hours, so they're required to do training, so if we were to change it, it would be training, special duties, if they are doing inspections or whatever, and then the part-time wages, that's the call for. The vehicle maintenance, it's broken down in two, and it's more just so I can keep track. So we have our primary response apparatus, which is the big vehicles. And the fire vehicle repair maintenance, that's the smaller stuff. So our boat, Kubota, or brush trucks, things like that. It's just easier for me to track those expenses to make sure we're covering them. Obviously, all those costs have gone up, but we've really tried hard to, to keep that status quo. Some years we'll have a little bit higher on the small vehicles versus the big vehicles. They're just so you know, this is where I pulled out the additional 10 grand. I pulled an additional $10,000 out of the large apparatus line. I was requested to do that additional 10, so that's where we're pulling from.
On top of what's on here,
So it's in here.
or it's already been.
It's
already-
Right before printing, like.
Okay.
I'm just telling you where I'm pulling it.
Right.
This was that extra amount because we were bringing the health insurance back into the budget and not putting it off till fall. So we needed to find another 100,000 that last day.
So we split it amongst DPW, police, fire, and school.
And finance committee reserve.
Oh, yeah, sorry, got the time like that.
Yeah.
So the fire equipment radio, that's one of our bigger budgets, and that's for the good news, our simulcast radio system that is now functional in large part, thanks to this gentleman right here, who let us get our Peter on top of Homewood Suites, because we could not get access to the mall with that. So we have finally just completed testing. They're doing some fine tuning now, but for the first time in my career, I can actually walk through the mall and actually hear our dispatch center. So that's paying off that 5+ year loan, and the other, so there's still maintenance, and we still have to, this also includes the maintenance contract for all the equipment in our dispatch center. We do a time and materials on our small portables. There is a small fee for each one, but if we were to, have a service contract on each one, this would probably be double this. It's better for us to actually just pay for the time and materials if something happens to one of our radios and portables. We do have some small money in for our, sorry, I'm not the super radio guru, but there's some smaller pieces of equipment that are pretty serious that really need that maintenance contract on. So that's covered in that as well. The air pack replacement and maintenance, you can see that dropped substantially because we received that $250,000 AFG grant 2 years ago. And so now basically this is for the annual maintenance contract. So every year we're required by standard to actually have the company come out to the fit testing, make sure the bottles are inspected, air packs. They test all the masks to make sure that they pass muster for us, and that is required. We cannot get out of that. So that's a pretty substantial savings. The building maintenance and equipment, so that was reduced a little bit, and I'll just tell you that that's a really, really tight budget as well. That includes all the generator inspections, the life safety generators. So this place, because it's considered a
Cooling and warming shelter.
cooling warming shelter, North Station, and then our center station. Those are all emergency service generators. So that's included for that contract. Suppression systems. So the hood suppressions, we have 3 plus the schools. So here, the North Station, and then Hadley Elementary and Hopkins Academy, those are all in that. Fire extinguishers are in the next one. Sprinkler inspections, we have the new buildings with sprinklers, fire alarms, all the fire alarms for each building, their annual inspection and also monitoring right now. We are, again, now that we have completed that fiber project, we're working on final phase of that to get the equipment into our center station, where our dispatchers will be able to monitor all of those fire alarm systems. So that will decrease that budget at some point soon. Like I said, it just seems like it's right there, but we're close.
Will that allow us to offer that service to businesses?
No, that's Amy is, I believe, discussing the possible build out of that system further. Um. Right now, what we pay for through Fiber Spring is, the high speed internet that we have, it's only for town buildings.
I'm talking about more of the monitoring.
Yeah, but that goes through that fiber and we're only allowed to use.
Just for our buildings right now.
I guess, could we, even with without the fiber, is there any way we could offer those monitoring services? We can't, there's no way.
It would be too much for our dispatch center to handle for that much to have that monitoring, and I don't even know, those systems actually have to report to. Yeah, so if somebody pulls down a smoke detector, it notifies them, so anything, if we were to offer up to all those, we would have to have probably a second dispatcher.
And a certified technician too, so if it did break or something, then you have to send out the fire alarm company that's certified to fix that device or look into the system of what's going on.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one.
Okay.
So the engine and ladder, you'll see that's a little bit higher, but expense, but we average between $7,000 and $12,000 per truck for home testing, annual maintenance on our equipment. Physicals, much the same. The telephone and internet, with the decrease you see, we requested 40,000 and it was dropped to the 35,475. We are gonna be short on that, so that includes all the town cell phones. It includes the Fiber Spring high-speed internet for all the buildings in town. What else is in there? We do have a couple of cable things, at North Station. Department phones, I take care of the department phones, the hard lines that we have to have in dispatch, and Mike takes care of the,
You take care of the cell stuff, I take it.
I've taken on remember we split that, you do the Normando and I do the fire department dispatch lines.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so it's all of our shared.
So the fire pays for the cell phones for fire and safety and DPW?
DPW, the dog officer, it was cheaper to combine them all under one rate. And we switched for, building commissioner, town administrator, and
Now, they cell phones, remember years ago, there used to be the Nextel, it was like a two-way radio. But these are actual,
they have that technology now that we're in cell phones and public safety side we're looking at, but right now they're iPhones. So,
Okay.
what else? I think everything else is pretty much status quo, so. You know, because, there was a decrease in the bunker coats and pants that, we get 5 sets each year to try and keep up, so we're not asking for. We have to phase them out, they cannot be worn, more than 10 years. So regardless, and, that's boots as well, hoods. And those costs are just accelerating annually, so it will probably be short one set, but because we've been really working hard on making sure that we're keeping up with it. I think we'll probably be okay, but we can certainly, we've been fortunate also that, there is a state firefighter equipment grant. That we received about 15,500 and in anticipating these potential cuts, we've outfitted, basically one set right now. And then the residual from this firefighter equipment grant, which it's a 5-year grant through the public government down to the state. So that residual money that wasn't used is now coming out in a final grant. It has to be expended by June 30th of this year. And we've requested one additional set. So with that, I think we'd be okay with, we have that month next year.
so after that 10-year anniversary date of those bunkers, suits and coats, you just toss them because they're expired safety wise to the person
Yes.
using.
Well, the jackets and pants, and then we declare surplus. And in all honesty, we're trying to get anything that we can back. So I have a load of old helmets that we're gonna bring to auction and see if some people like to collect that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So if we can bring in some revenue on that, that's.
Or, no,
I'm sure my kids would love that, throwing rocks at each other. They need-
raffle at one of the best sports
Yeah,
events, I think
you can make more money.
you'd make some decent money.
Especially,
Drop off your house.
especially before Halloween too.
Yeah, no, honestly, so that is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a.
And we carried. My parents, we dragged a hose the whole time.
One question I do have is that I just recently was aware, and this is kind of a side about your equipment and age, is that, I guess firefighter life expectancy is actually going down. And mainly because of when they're going into buildings, there's so much synthetic materials that it's getting in. So does our equipment, the respiratory equipment and everything, is that up to date so that it can go and
Yes. So
and
the,
deal with all of those things?
well, I mean, as best as it can, you're still exposed no matter what, but we train on trying to reduce that as much as possible. Basically, like I said, our air packs, we got that grant for, that was the biggest thing.
Right.
When I started there and Sean Pete was on there, he remembers we used to share masks. So the mask would literally be on the truck.
There's supposed to be size for each individual person.
Yeah.
So that was a huge resource to get that. The only issue now, you've heard of the PFAS issue, so this PFAS that's in, fortunately, that's the only thing that they can put into our turnout gear to protect from all this garbage that's getting on us. But they're basically right now, they're studying the potential impacts. You have a firefighter that's sweating in a fire. What are they, what's being
Leaching-
absorbed as far as the
Leaching
PFAS?
into their body.
Yeah, so right now, it's, that testing is ongoing, and I don't think it's as severe as they think it is. But the governor did, it's been banned now. And so basically the way it is right now is that if we purchase a set of turnout gear, it's new law requires that it's labeled if it does have PFAS in it.
So we won't be auctioning those off.
Oh, we're definitely,
Yeah, okay.
just don't.
Well, the other thing too is,
Not to wear.
well,
Not to wear in a fire.
Only display.
We'll have it.
Well, that's the thing is they don't know what the actual true life is of that PFAS. So it may be leached out already, nothing there. So they're testing that furiously.
Right, I was just in classes and it was snowing.
When it comes to all your uniforms, I'm sure because you have all this is heat and fire retardant, but all your uniforms, they're all Nomex, all fire rated. For all, I'm guessing, for all your,
All of our
Oh.
firefighting equipment is, our daily wear is normally what you're seeing now. We try, it's usually cotton or if it is that. What we are doing, and that was again received by grant, is we have our extractors now that are designed to actually clean everybody's gear, and we have a second commercial washer, so. These folks going out to anything now, if they come back from a fire call, not only their turnout gear is getting washed, but they're taking their undergarments off and getting it into the washer. So there's no cross contamination with them bringing it home. They get changed out of their gear every day at the station and they wash their gear at the station. There's bloodborne pathogens that we do have resistance to, but I mean, it's
so
still,
if you got regular standard clothes like we'd be wearing, but you're in fire protection is the gear that you're cycling every 10 years.
the other thing too is like the Mass Fire Academy, Department of Fire Services, they're pushing big for cancer now because firefighters, there's a lot of cancer now with, firefighting and it's starting to come out more. So 2 years ago, we had them come out for free to do a skin check on people, for skin cancer and stuff. And then now they're pushing more like, take this form to your doctor for your physical.
it's a list of
Yeah.
It's blood work,
Absolutely.
heart, get your heart checked,
Yep.
stuff like that.
Okay.
so, I don't know, is there any questions on?
I do have one question. The North Station, you paid for the fiber spring through that, right? That's
Actually, it comes, that was all paid out of the North Hadley Fire.
North Half and the fire station building account that we had, right?
Yeah.
Where do we still have anything left in that?
There's not going to be once we pay the final bills on the last build out. So we had the relocation to Pullman Suites from, it was supposed to go to Target, so that was a cost. There are some others. It's gonna be minimal.
What's
Right now, there's about 30,000 left in the account, and I'd say after we're done, if there's any left, it would be maybe.
okay?
So
Say 500.
500.
500.
Okay,
But just, we also, remember, we also put in there a lift so we can maintain our building, and then it's also, it's part of the DPW, so we can go to any building. So we have a scissor lift that we got used. They could come in here and change lights if they need it, and then we have a boom lift that we purchased. The only one they had was new at that time. It made sense for the cost. But that can be used, or a number of us are certified on that. You actually have to go through the training on that, but that's, so we can actually clean all the cobwebs and try and keep up on some of these buildings, which our firefighters have been working really hard on.
okay. So you're gonna keep going with the rest of your budget? Because half of your budget is
Yeah.
because your firefighters are over here too.
Can I just check on fire, what the one line that you're most concerned that you're not even gonna make it through the year, you said is the telephone internet one, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the one you've been looking for.
Yep.
Something, and where you took the extra money and you said that was the engine ladder test and maintenance line,
Correct. They took the 10,000 out
Right,
of the
okay.
40.
is that a problem?
Depends on the year.
Okay, all right, okay,
Yeah, so.
so that's just one. Yes, thank you.
You received the ambulance side of it, We do dispatch. Oh, that's not me, that's Mike. Okay.
Who's gonna?
That's right. It's, so, I only had a question because I didn't understand on your thing, you had asked about combining. There was a question about combining under building maintenance dispatch and. If you know what that was? It said combined dispatch and fire building costs, and it was under my building equipment.
That was just a question.
Yeah.
List.
I didn't
That's okay.
do anything.
Have to worry
Yeah.
about it. Okay.
I was just, right, I was just taking notes as I went through it. And I honestly don't remember exactly what I heard, but I'll talk to you when I do.
So, I think I handed out the ambulance budget to you in my presentation as well. So I don't know, do you have any upfront questions about that part? And this is, kind of a revolving thing right now. We're not, we have not, nor will we, I believe, use the entire budget that we have. Can't really give you that number right now. So we've kind of been infused with funds. So the original 407,000 that was requested in FY23, we have 85,000 left, so they put in 185,000 at one town meeting to get us through a specific need. We still had 85,000 left, and then rolled in another 350.
You know what you have left now?
The date. What's the date?
Did you print, is that from the most recent email? It might not be exact.
This is from Losis. Maybe Linda can read this quick for me.
Was that a report from Jared?
Yeah. The confusing part to me, it's like he has the wages full-time rolled over for each of the schools.
Yeah, all I know for sure is you, about 311,000 been used halfway through the year, so that he's looking at another couple of months past that, so you were.
Yeah, I have the
Right.
detailed one. I don't
You were
have.
good shape halfway through the year. So,
Do you expect any, Linda, do you expect any free cash to come out of that?
It's all in the special, that's in the special revenue, so it's not in.
But
what you mean from the,
could we allocated it, right?
yeah,
But if it's not spent, where does it?
any of it to come back.
Yeah.
That was the plan at the time, and it's beginning to look like the numbers have shifted, and that's part. I don't expect, we're not planning on getting that free cash flow stabilization repaid at this point. So that's why we're at a point where we're
Okay, so you're not,
evaluating that.
you're not expecting a surplus in that,
Oh, you're talking about, okay.
yeah. But from the money that we last voted, in the
From-
last town meeting,
You don't mean just his budget?
no, just that amount for the ambulance.
We would be able to, it's in a special revenue account, which means it wouldn't leave it's a revolving account. And anything that would be extra
Just goes to the
It's
next
based
fiscal
upon, it would go to the next fiscal year, and it's based upon how much you can reserve, how much you can save in those line items.
But didn't we take all the money that was made and put it into the general budget, the whole 90?
90,000 is going
The
to,
90,000 is what we've made in ambulance receipts. That doesn't include what the funding is. We have that. So it's kind of, it's a special, it's a special budget.
receipts reserved,
Yes.
ambulance receipts reserved.
It's an
If they
ode to
kind of-
Paybacks.
But to Amy's point, we're able to use the 90. Why can't we use we can't use the surplus? But look, because we allocated for the last town meeting, we voted to add about
It was 350 the last week.
350
and it was put into the
special revenue.
special revenue.
So, but that was towards the operating budget.
Right.
It's the operational of the.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is, from that 350 minus all the expenses, is there any expectation that there's going to be?
Well, because it went through articles, it's not a rollback in the sense that other budgets are, in that even if he finished the year and had 50,000 left over, it wouldn't roll back into general funds. It would stay in the special revenue account. But it could be applied next time to the budget. So it can be dedicated towards ambulance.
But my point is there any money? Is there going to be any? No.
I mean, unless if we're letting firefighters go, then
No, what I'm saying is that fiscal year ending, where that money is gonna be all used, that 350 will be.
It's,
no,
whatever.
it won't be gone, but it doesn't fall back to the town. It just goes to, yes,
That-
it will be,
Oh.
yes.
Be mostly used, don't you think?
Well, I mean, there's, again,
If
it's.
you use
overtime costs.
Variance. What- Do you have a variance percentage for the total budget?
So
And that's on top of the 90, whatever the money that we've.
It's not-
The
we
90 is
handled-
for-
but yeah, the
that's for
90
26.
This is the detail.
For the 25 budget, he'd used 311 by December 31, and what he had available for the 25 budget was 622. That was about exactly half of it that he had used by the end of December. So unless the funding has slowed down, the expectation is that he'll pretty much come even at the end of the year. But if there is any left over, can it be applied towards the ambulance budget? Yes. But it has to be by vote, which would mean we could access it at the fall town meeting. It won't be a natural rollback the way it is from other general fund budgets.
And then I have one question. We have 90 in hand that we've billed and collected.
Approximately.
You also have billings that are in process. Does that take some time? Do we have some idea what we got out in the?
Not yet. Pro EMS is, they're still doing their 3 month. So
I even emailed last week or the week before and they said they're not sure.
We don't have like even just a ballpark number, like might be 30,000, it might be 50.
not right now, because we're only doing the calls
Okay.
for service.
And, what's in process?
Just what we think, like if you had to throw a dart at the wall and say between when we stopped at the 90,000, we actually collected to now.
Yeah, we don't have
We
that
don't
now.
know, okay.
The only thing I have is that you had sent me.
I think it's been averaging about 7,000 a month that we've been taking in.
And so how many months are we behind that aren't included in the 90?
Wait.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
3 right now.
So that's just, it's always looking at. Just remember that we might have another 20 coming into that account that can be applied to this also.
Well,
Right.
so that's,
Opposite, Paul, I've already done it.
You got it in there already. Okay.
We only actually have 78 in hand, so I'm hoping we're gonna have 90 at the town meeting.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh.
future.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Okay.
we're scratching.
Yeah, okay, all right. Good. That's what we were looking for.
Forecasting.
Okay,
Okay, fine.
now I
That's-
understand.
Huh?
Yeah,
So that's not YTD, that's not like in hand, it's.
That was like, we will have it in hand at town meeting.
okay.
And then we would still have May and June, so probably another $15,000 to $20,000 in this fiscal year. We'll be building up towards the next time. We'll never be losing it.
Right. Well, I mean, we do adjustments because money comes in sometimes, or we have to pay bills after the fact. Do the receipts that he bills from this calendar year that don't get collected till next year because there's a lag, does that go, how does that get handled?
Just the special revenue account,
It just falls in the use. Okay. Thanks.
The lag is 2 to 3 months, isn't it?
It's a 3 month look back for action. Sheets.
Okay.
After then, fiscal year.
Okay.
So basically, I don't think we really, the asks that we have here are just for operational purposes. I think 180,000, I think, is in a separate line. So when you look at the total cost, that 180,000 that's in there, that's for Actions ambulance contract. Okay. So that's really not part of that special revenue budget.
Correct.
When do we know when that money is coming, like when they rebate us?
That's 3 months. It's a 3-month look back after July 1st. So then, like, we've always tried to be very conservative, but we have overestimated sometimes. We suggest not going over 100,000 for a return, but we've been fortunate. Last year was 140,000. We received back for 180. I'm hoping that with all the call volume that we've had this year, that we'll see that full revenue, but I don't know if that, again, I don't know if they're including their responses to Amherst. It might be pure revenue for them. So,
Why would that, why would that,
because they're not responding to our community, they're responding to another community.
even though they're
That's something we have to have a conversation.
So we handled the ambulance special revenue account the same way that we handled every other budget, so there were reductions made by line item. Mike certainly didn't agree with all of them. He does, I'll let him highlight which ones he thinks are really gonna hurt. But I don't know how much you folks want to get into the plans of the ambulance services again, or if you just want to go through the budget. You heard the 3 plans the other night, the status quo, the middle of the road, and then the full bore. Mike had some concern about some of the reductions that I made just to the ambulance account generally. It was technically an increase to the budget, but some lines got hit pretty hard where we thought we could.
And it's mostly just covering costs for example, intercept fees. But you're gonna be getting that back in the insurance billing. But if for example, if Action doesn't intercept on our basic ambulance, we get a $500 bill for that, but it's usually covered in insurance. Same thing with Amherst, Northampton, I believe are 375. Belchertown is 500. So that's a cost of that business.
when you said it's covered in the insurance, what does that mean?
Well, we get billed out of the higher rate. So if we're responding as a BLS call and we call for an ALS intercept, their medic gets on our truck. So there's a cost to them, but we're billing it out on an ALS rate.
And then we have to pay that.
So that cost is really, we recoup that cost. Okay.
Normally, unless we don't get, if it's a Medicare or Medicaid call that doesn't cover that expense, then some of it would be, there could potentially be an offset.
So on the difference between an intercept ALS versus just a BLS, is there any difference once you make that? If you have to
There's no
deduct that out, does it end up being the same for us?
Other
Other than that, we were at a higher level of service and got points for it, on training items, so.
well, I guess maybe I'm not understanding the question.
Okay, we go out as a
ALS
BLS,
bus.
and I'm just gonna take a number, let's say we get $500.
Mhm.
If we went out as an ALS, we get, let's say, $1,000 for the same room.
Yep.
But if it's an intercept ALS, we have to pay the,
We wouldn't intercept as an ALS.
okay, so we only.
When we go ALS, it's only as a BLS. It's when you need an advanced life support person on your ambulance.
So we need them on because of the type of call it is?
Type of call, and then it's because we're only BLS.
Okay.
So those intercept
We need to
fees-
do that. Okay, yeah, I was just curious, because it may end up being a wash between what we used to get. But we're doing what we need to do.
So when we go ALS, those intercept fees would go out.
Yep.
But we could start billing out ALS fees if we were intercepting something like South Hadley District 2 that's BLS.
Yeah, so it's like ALS 1, ALS 2, and then BLS, and then ALS 1 is the highest you get paid, so that's like depending on how much medication you're given, stuff like that,
Right.
what the procedures are that the paramedic gives you,
Mhm.
and then they actually break it down that the billing will break it down of what kind of call it was at.
So I've had I have had a long conversation with Mike and, this is a question of the ambulance and I'll express my concerns about eliminating that and not going forward. We've worked really, really hard to get where we're at. And again, that budget is split between fire and ambulance. So if we were to eliminate the ambulance budget, or if we were to move the ambulance salary lines, overtime and everything into the fire department budget, which we would still have to find the funding for. If that wasn't funded, we would be cutting probably 5.5 of our employees. So we would get back to a 4-on, 4-off schedule, 12 hours a day. We would no longer have full-time staff, and the deputy and I would be part of that plan. So if there was a call at the station, basically there would be nobody here at night again. It's by seniority now because it's a union contract. So we would lose our lieutenant training officer. We would lose 2 of our new firefighters, our IT coordinator. So it would.
So contained within the ambulance, special revenue is, I'm sorry if I already said it, it's 1 full-time person and then half of his own salary. So you're talking about nine people. And it's 1 full, so it's it would be 5.5 exactly, essentially. And it's, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on it. It's somewhere in the area of just, to salvage the staffing. And move them over to the fire department. Mike and I, during our discussion, we talked about him cutting the intermittent employees line. Portion of it, at least a portion of it, so probably somewhere in the area of 450 and 500,000 a year.
That would transfer to
That would transfer to fire to keep the staff.
And is that maintaining the existing, is that existing fire coverage?
That would maintain the existing fire coverage, and then we would also still be, there's. With the anticipated 90,000 tracking out, some of the operational pieces. We would still have our ambulances that we would be running. Because that's a process to just mothball and shut down our ambulances that are already in place and operating. So,
We still take calls and.
we would still take calls and bring that.
But I guess if we were to just, what would you require of this budget just to run the fire department as is? Without, let's say the ambulance didn't exist and we had the current coverage, which is 24/7, 365 days a year. How much of this would need to transfer over to the?
392,000, again, this is pre-union negotiation, so. FY 26 requested, which is 392,679, and then overtime, 39,353.
So that's where I got that figure.
So that
So we-
overtime is for fire, not necessarily overtime for ambulance.
The fire is,
Oh, okay.
So that overtime would still be required.
Only because you had it in the overtime for amps here too. You just took the amount split.
432,032.
Okay,
Is the exact thing. That's
okay.
assuming he cuts the entire intermittent employees, which I don't think he wants to do. If he cut all of that, it's 30,000.
So we would be saving roughly $70,000.
Well,
If we remove, meaning the difference between that line item and the final, the requested amount basically is so we're gonna need 430,000 roughly. That would transfer over to fire. And then the difference between the 430 and the 805,
you gotta take out that 80.
that 180,000 has to go over there also.
so it's 100,
Have the confidence.
Yeah.
193,249, so about 200,000.
So it's actually the net is actually, because the contract has to go through anyway, so it's really about 200,000.
Right.
So we would save 200,000 by not, by. If we got rid of this plus, but then we also have, we also wouldn't have the revenue.
Right.
That's, which is another 90,000. So the net,
It's BLS.
The DLS rate, we're at 100.
the net benefit is only 100.
And,
Interesting.
well, yeah.
But we also do have the other things that, do you have any capital for the equipment and ambulance and all that other stuff?
We don't anymore because it's all been pulled out.
But
That was the intent. Was
Yeah.
we start putting away the funding for the next ambulance we need to purchase.
and how much do you think would that, meaning if we were to keep the ambulance going, what would be roughly that dollar amount per year?
Most departments are on a 5-year cycle for their ambulances just because it takes 3 years to build them now. And you're looking at probably $500,000 for that ambulance. So over that 3-year cycle, you'd have to.
So if it's a 5-year cycle, so it's 100 grand a year. Somewhere,
Somewhere on there.
so it's really. So if you add that back into the 100 grand savings, it's a 200 grand saving a year.
Plus, we like scavenging, so will find another.
Yeah, we'll-
Find another.
So maybe
Okay.
we strike gold again.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, and then in between that, your people will still be training up to ALS capability. So we will be able to do some of the billing at the higher rates, hopefully, I'm assuming, assuming it's needed.
And
I
that's
mean,
why
it's all dependent on what you find at the call, right? Cause you send an ALS truck out,
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily go
Doesn't
with
bother
ALS,
us.
right? And then it's on mutual aid, we don't get anything, right?
mutually, we don't get anything.
We don't get anything.
Goes to the town that shows up, unless they injure us, then we get it.
And that's
Boy, that's-
second, it would be second call with action.
As of right now, it'd be second call because we're not staffed to handle.
So that's
all
that's the
calls
other part of it.
No, no,
You
yeah,
have to
yeah,
just
yeah.
kind of keep in your mind is that we, with this, that have to keep action.
Right.
And That'd be the big.
They'll be, right, but
In the event that you ever get rid of action, in order to be,
Right.
you have to go to the full.
Right.
The full plan.
So the reality is to have any real savings, you'd have to reduce fire capacity. You'd have to get rid of firefighters and you'd have to go to a system where you're gonna have full coverages where.
You're not gonna have this.
that's just a scary place to be.
That's a thinner.
Yep. Skeleton crew, right, it's a skeleton crew.
It'd be going back 10 years.
Yep.
I have a question for you, it might be off topic, when it comes to your inspections to all commercial buildings.
Mhm.
And I was looking at it when it comes to the general fund for the revenue tables, is there a number there of how much revenue we're getting from our inspections and,
Inspections.
and is that going, where is that
That goes
money?
into free.
That goes to free cash. Okay, that's what I was wondering where that money goes.
I apologize, I didn't think of bringing that number of what we brought in to date, but I know our revenues have increased having Heidi on board, because she is just attacking people to get money.
Well, good, but just knowing that, you know. We're paying for you guys to do your services and that money's going to free cash. Dude, it's too bad it's not going towards what you guys are doing.
Well, when the department started, the $40,000 that was promised by Home Depot, it took us a while to get. It was evaluated on what potentially we could bring in for revenues for inspections by putting my position in place. So we were close. It was about, I think, 35,000 the first year, but it just wasn't enough to have to do the calls with just 2 of us. So myself and the deputy were, on top of having to go to these second calls and everything, we're in between that. I think I did 6 inspections yesterday. We did
2 or 3.
2 or 3 plus plan reviews. And I mean, we could have,
You
easily-
did 4 calls within an hour.
yeah, we were all over the place.
So all the inspections go into fire receipts, right?
I go into your, yeah, it's the. And again, we are, like I said, we are still researching and trying to get a meeting with, our extended care facility. And, to see if we can any revenue like that. We've discussed, is there some sort of a fire tax we should be looking at in town? I brought up the concept of reaching out and communicating with UMass to see if we could do some sort of a public safety fee on the concerts and sporting events, because, you know, that impacts us too. So we put out a number of ideas, and then there's the buy-in for if you wanted to be a part of that program where you pay into our service, and then you know, balance build for if you put in $75 or $100 for that per household. If one of your family members goes to the hospital and your insurance only covers 600 of it, the rest of it is absorbed by that $75.
Yeah, membership.
How would that, who would administrate that?
That would go through Pro message.
Oh, okay.
I did think that that might be a good idea to, at one point, look at for a maybe, whether it be fire and, or just a whole public safety district tax. But that would be a whole big deal, but we're doing the Molly, and there's a group, I think we're on it, that's the form of government. And having, my understanding is having that district tax, like Montague has and some of the others have. Yeah. That is like its own form of government. It's a big deal. It's not an easy thing to do, but they're doing the form of government. We're working with, we have the whole committee and they have a whole thing. I think that would be a great idea for them to look into, maybe, is seeing if it is something possible. I know that Route 9 uses the majority of our services. I don't know how many times the bank has called versus I've never called at my house. You know, I've never placed that call at my house, but I have placed it plenty of times over at the bank. So I think that just for the use of the services is concentrated right here on Route 9, if there was any way we could do that. And that would really affect a lot of, you know, our commercial.
Yeah.
Versus the resident.
I will, I'll float that.
Ask
to
it
the
if-
committee. Sure.
And again, I've got to throw the plug in. I know we've talked about it, but the philosophical side of it, I'm telling you, our department has the professionalism, support from the crew. I understand the union got a great contract and they truly appreciate that. But these guys and gals are working their tails off. We have a call force, a young call force, lady in our department who's down in Springfield at the academy tonight, call force program. We have one of our new members, she's in a paramedic program, rushing to try and get that completed. And again, I just want you to understand that they're cross-trained, there's so many benefits to this. And there's so many different documents you can read on it of what the positives are. I understand it doesn't look like it's a moneymaker, but it's offsetting the cost to give you top-notch services. And I truly feel, and Evan feels the same way, there's a lot of folks that would really, really like to come to Hadley. And and I completely understand where we're at with budget this year, and we've had to cut back in status quo and phased in approach. I just hope that you guys will keep an open mind and potentially back and talk with us, because I truly think it's critical, and I made plenty of reasons why at the last meeting.
Sure. Yeah. This isn't easy on our side.
Yeah, I figured.
This isn't like, well, I can't wait to just beat these departments up, but we would love to have enough money to do all these things. We'd love to have enough money to fix all the potholes and the roads that are deteriorating. We're trying to do a really good job here, but there's only so much money. And we're gonna have to talk to the people who live in this town and pay taxes here and say, look, we don't have any more. We're gonna have to, people are gonna have to decide what's important to them in their town and quality of service.
I agree. And I appreciate I completely understand.
We'll do our best. We'll do our best, but I mean, I appreciate these, the people come in here and their budgets have been, slashed to some degree, and we're still talking. You know, it's not an adversary thing. It's not adversarial rather. It's more, we're just trying to get through this, all of us. And we haven't even felt the impact of what's going on right now. You know,
So I would just like to say too, like, I'm not just saying because he's my boss. I'm just saying, it's like, I've worked at other fire departments. And it's good working for a town and a community like this and having him as my boss. But to see where he's brought this place from when he first started as just a firefighter, prevention guy, to the full-time fire chief, to bringing on, you know, staffing, new station, new engine, new gear for all our guys. You don't see that in other departments. Other guys are, you know, and I think that, you know, he's shown dedication to the department, to the guys, to the women, and the whole town.
I remember when he had hair.
And he doesn't get, he doesn't.
Okay, I'll just share a quick story because I had a meeting today
That's how long he's been here. That's how long I've known him. Yeah.
at our fire mobilization meeting, and the chief in Sterling, where I grew up, is actually retiring in November. And one of the smart alecks on the, they put up a picture on, in front of the whole state fire mobilization group of him back 20 years before he came to chief and said, see what this did to you.
yeah, right. Me,
Huh?
yeah, you-
Oh,
me too. I had it out there here.
I probably handed you a fire helmet from this when you were.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure, you know, I remember you were running pretty ragged when you first started here. It was, you didn't have much time for anything else.
Still though.
Yeah. It's, well, it's good having the folks on it, like, trust me, it's helpful.
So other things, we're running so much through the fire. It's not like you're just the equipment in the building. You have responsibilities for all these other things, cell phones and fiber internet. And it's not like, it's not a very, very specific thing you're in charge of. You're part of the infrastructure of this town now. It's not just one thing.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good to go.
Well,
Well, let me just double check. Hold on. Andy's with us. Did you have any questions that you wanted to add? Or did you have anything just because you're on Zoom, I didn't want to leave you out.
Tell him to pull out his 8-ball and shake it. That's the function.
You've got your special tool there. I am gonna watch the front half of this section as I missed. I was over at the DPW meeting. And I'm sure I can ask one-on-one if there are any other details. I got the gist of what you were saying there, but you know, without having you recap everything that you've already talked about, I will. You've said it enough, I'm sure.
You just have, this is gonna be probably quick and easy. You asked me what I meant by the combined dispatch and fire building. Now, and you're here too. You have in the fire department building equipment expenses. Building equipment expenses, and then on dispatch, we have building maintenance supplies. Can we get them into one or the other, or are they
For the
different?
expenses for it, it's for,
mine's for fire alarm and generator.
oh,
Yeah.
your building maintenance.
It's the way it's
supplies,
laid
uh,
out.
Okay, those are like
things
maintenance
and lines.
contracts. Okay,
Yeah.
these are,
These are actual maintenance supplies, cleaning supplies, terms of these, you know, things like that. Always fire.
that's it.
I do, sorry, I have one more question.
Sorry, I tapped out.
So we already discussed.
I'm looking, just when I'm looking at the budget, I just want to understand just in salaries.
Mhm.
On full-time wages, I see it increased by 32,000. I see the full-time wages in the ambulance went down about 6. This is between the increase between 25 and 26. Is there anything in here? Is this just have to do with the union negotiations, or is there any new people or any new anything? Is it just union
It's the
negotiations?
union, and I can explain it to you, the difference. So basically what happened is prior to the union contract, I had to factor for up to 48 hours of straight time. Because they were being paid straight time for 6 hours of training a month. That would be straight time.
Mhm.
That was negotiated out, so there's no longer up to 48 hours of straight time, which is allowed under FLSA. It's now 42 hours and then it's straight, it's overtime. So there was that difference because if I had to factor up to 48 hours for each employee, the number was higher. Based upon just the 42 hours, you know what I mean? So that's where that, you might see more on the overtime side now.
Okay.
Because, you know, they have a 3-hour minimum, to come back, so
So it just got moved around a little
it
bit,
got
but
shuffled around.
there's
and
no
then it
new
changes.
people, there's not more anything. It's all it is just moved the different line items in union negotiations. Thank you. That's all. I just wanted to make sure I understood it. Thank you very much.
It out.
Very nice. Look at these pins. Now we didn't.
Colors, Mike, look
Yeah.
at them.
Colors.
I said, when we get that, if I printed at the bank, I'd get black and white.
Colors of paper, wow, you're going all out, huh? Was that in the budget?
So. After last week, I just wanted to make sure that we're gonna go through this as the budget so that everybody can see everything.
Okay,
And after this year, I'll roll it all back to the way that it used to be so that we can go through it a little bit more efficiently as, you know, as obviously it was super important. So we will make the adjustment back and hopefully won't have to worry about that.
okay.
So, we'll do police first. If, I think that's your top sheet.
And by the way, I
Yeah.
did afterwards, and we can down the road, change up things
Mhm.
and how we want to do it, especially with recommendations from Linda. I did look at some other, because I've only known how to do this from when I've been on this board, right? So I've seen it with what David Nixon started and what we did. So this is what I'm familiar with.
Sure.
Now, some places, they don't do this at all. I went to some other towns and they just do salaries and expenses,
Yeah.
but then they have a narrative on everything.
Yeah.
And this is why it's different. Here's why the number's different. This is how much it costs for this. This is how much, and it was all a narrative and instead of lines.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what confusion is about, and
Yep,
if we had had my budget meeting last time, that's how it would have been. I have the narrative here out and
Yeah.
gone through everything.
so different
So,
things like
yeah.
that is fine.
It's
It's just when
Wow.
when I'm trying to understand it. So we can look at that down the road and sometimes that might be something. And I don't know what's the best way to go. And maybe it's something as discussion for next year.
There's reasons to do it both ways, but I actually do like when we have fewer figures to work out, but the differences are pointed out in full. And I
Yeah,
think that's really what what it is that you want to see each year is, okay, we had last year's and now what's different this year? What, you increased this one or you took away from that one, or you merged those two, so that we're just highlighting those items in particular.
mhm.
If that's enough, I mean, you have department heads who come in here and will go through line by line and they like doing that. They like
Mhm.
explaining everything, and others that you know, even with their lines set out specifically, they're gonna have to make adjustments during the year because they're doing this in January for the next July to June. And there's just so much, particularly like highway, for example. What's the weather? Are the trees gonna come down? Is there gonna be a lot of snow? So there's gonna be a lot of flexibility. So the important thing in that kind of a budget is the bottom line. Say, and what has changed this year and why is something increased? So I don't know, we can certainly I think it does need to evolve to be more useful each year, and it very often it evolves in a way that I see as more useful because I'm sitting here with but there's no reason you can't have more input on it at an earlier point and say what we really found that you put in there that we really didn't need is something, or we'd like to see a little bit more of a narrative and fewer lines. That's fine too. I mean, that's something we can work on together.
Okay,
Thanks.
yeah, no problem. Okay, so, we'll go through the wage lines first. Those are the yellow, your bright yellow ones that you have. Chief salaries on top, that's just a percentage increase.
Mhm.
The first large increase you see there is the admin salaries. The reason that that is so large is because that is the only additional employee that was approved in town. But that is paid for wholly out of the opioid funds. That is for our clinician who is going to be an opioid remediation and mental health clinician. She will work directly with police officers. She is currently working with police officers on a grant program. The state recently significantly cut the grant program that she is on right now. And so this was already in the works and we were working towards this to begin with, but that's what that addition is for.
So I have a question, because I know that I had this question before. I had it last year too, and it had to do with Council on Aging. When we get the grants, like certain grants, those go into I'm not gonna find them so like this opioid, I'm not gonna find it in the revenue, correct? I'm gonna find that in the free cash because we scoop up our grants through free cash. Am I correct?
This one, the opioid one, is actually a separate fund.
It's spelled out, I think, in.
It's a
Where is so this is
So you're
showing,
not gonna see it on the revenue sheet, is that what you mean?
Yes, because you have it
it's
in
not
the
going into
expense.
the general fund.
Well, she puts it on, it is in one of the sheets.
Yes, as a transfer,
Yes,
yes.
it is
Only way
listed
to-
somewhere.
So the only way to spend the money is to transfer it from the opioid.
Just like the 90,000. Yeah,
Exactly, yeah, because I remember
Right.
it is on that one.
you saw it somewhere in the earlier,
It's
in the beginning.
No, it's in the book.
Oh,
I
okay,
don't know if it's in the beginning or the end.
that's okay.
yeah, it's a transfer, so it's not, when you're looking at the list of
22
revenues,
goes in here.
you're not gonna see
think
it
I-
there.
Yeah,
That's where I
Because
was
it's
seeing.
not, it's not revenue into the general fund, but when you're in the section where it says how we balance the
page
budget,
22?
it's in there as a transfer.
Yeah.
That's where I saw it,
Page
page
22.
22.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna put a page.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no problem. So moving on, the next fairly large increase you will see is for the full-time officers and that is, I handled that the exact same as Mike did with his folks, is whatever is currently contractually obligated has been added into that. And what is currently being negotiated or has, just recently finished being negotiated has not been added in. I could get really into the weeds on that and explain to you how I calculate all that, but I guess the easiest way to say it is this. When you have 3 different shifts, there's 3 different shift differentials. Officers are allowed to move around to different differentials throughout the year. So if I calculate at a day shift differential, I'm gonna be short, meaning somebody can go to the midnight shift and make $2 an hour more an hour. And so I'll be short. So what I do is I calculate everything at the evening shift differential. So sometimes you're short for some officers and sometimes you're heavy based on where they go. And usually it evens out. By doing that and by adding in what is already contractually obligated, depending upon what they just recently negotiated, I may be in a really good place for that number. That you see at the bottom there, the 1713078. I may not have to add too much to that line, so we might be in good shape when it comes to that. The bad part about it is that if you look back up at the top into the yellow, you'll see that part-time line has been zeroed out. I am faced with really difficult decision to basically eliminate the part-time officers from our department. And the even more unfortunate part about it is that I had hoped to eliminate that line and be able to move it somewhere else to try to salvage some of the other issues that we have, but Linda and I made so many passes through this budget. I probably don't even have it anywhere else where I really need it. But ultimately that one has been zeroed out. The next line down, when you get into the orange columns, is the overtime. So the first one up on the top there is 107, 150. So you'll see we made a reduction of almost $17,000 there. We've had a really good handle on the overtime for the last decade or so. We have never overrun the overtime line. Unfortunately, with that large of a cut, if we have a lot of
Part-timers, you
vacancies.
mean? Yeah.
No, in the overtime line, if we have a lot of vacancies in our full-time staffing, we're gonna be in trouble in that line. That number that it's gonna be at, that's at right now, 107, 150. That's a few $1,000s more than what that line was at when I took over as chief. So, and unfortunately, I have 2 vacancies currently, and I have another one coming up. So if we don't refill those positions quick, fast, and in a hurry, and if we have to send officers to the academy, if we can't steal people from other places, I will have vacancies, and we will unfortunately be, that'll be a problem line for us.
What are the shifts? How many people, how many people, so there's 3 shifts? Or,
3 shifts, day shift, evening shift, and midnight shift.
so it's 8-hour,
Yeah,
8
7
hours?
to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7.
Okay, and then how many people is it staffed evenly per shift?
We have to move things around sometimes, just when we have vacancies, and about a year ago, 8 months ago or so, I made a really kind of difficult decision to pull 2 officers out of our patrol function and make them full-time detectives to deal with the retail theft that's going on. Amy's been at some of those meetings. We have over $1 million in merchandise being stolen from this town on an annual basis in both, organized and unorganized crime. So
Yeah, one more reason for that extra tax.
it was getting to the point where I was concerned that, some of our businesses would end up like, San Francisco, and they'd be shuttering their doors. So I have 2 detectives who are probably 80% retail theft, dealing with retail theft. So that has shortened our staffing numbers for patrol officers by 2. We usually run minimum staffing of 2 officers per shift. If we are lucky, we'll get 3 based upon the numbers that we have, but Paul was, mentioned this the other day with the firefighters. I chuckled quietly to myself, but we have the same number of officers on the road as the fire department.
And you really don't want one at them only, right?
Well, no, definitely not. We can't.
Yeah.
We absolutely can't. That's too.
So when the overtime happens, is it mostly during the 2 day shifts? Or is it?
It's scattered. It's scattered based upon the way that our schedules fall, because they work 4 on, 2 off, so their days rotate throughout the week. We have it set up where several years ago, when we made lieutenants, we negotiated with the officers in the contract that the lieutenants could cover patrol shifts, which saves us a ton of money in overtime. I just really don't like the lieutenants doing patrol work as often as they do, because so many things can happen, and if I lose one of the administrative lieutenants to injury or something like that, we're in trouble. So
Mostly it's two patrol per officers per shift.
So if you're running 3 people, and I know you're always seeing an officer during the winter time, when it comes to basketball, you got a game on both men's and women's basketball games going on throughout the week, and there's.
talking about Hopkins?
Yeah, and there's 4 days a week. Now, is that during that someone's shift or?
No, that's separate.
That's separate.
Detail, just like you would see a traffic officer out there. So that's somebody that's.
Yeah, cause that's taking away somebody from patrol, for
We don't-
3 hours of a game.
We only do things like that when we're talking very short periods of time, and we really only do it to help the town out.
Right.
The town to, function. So that line's a concern, but again, we have had very good control over it. I just don't think that that's gonna be enough money. The very next line down is training, and that is a wage line. There's another line a little bit further down that I'll explain a little bit further, which is technically to pay for the training classes. This one is to pay the officers specifically to go to training.
Okay, so if you're saying you're 52 weeks of the year and 2 weeks you're in training, that's the 2 weeks it would be in this training. You wouldn't,
Correct,
it wouldn't be under the salary, regular
correct,
salary.
exactly.
It's for their time.
Right. It's
Okay.
exactly, it's for their wages. So, so the worrisome part about this line is, we cut, again, Linda and I cut, what, 20,000? Little less than 20,000. So I have 15 police officers that make wages and are paid out of this line. Myself and the 2 lieutenants are salaried, so we don't, you don't have to worry about overtime or anything like that. And with the creation of the post commission, we're talking about 50 or so hours of mandatory training every single year for every single officer. CPR, firearms, and 8 or 9 different other subjects that are selected by the MPTC annually.
That's annual, not, it's not like it's every 2 or 3 years.
Not like what we were talking
Yeah.
about earlier. This is every single year and it's different every single year. Well, except for CPR. So just doing the basic math on that with a median overtime rate, we're gonna spend probably about 35,000 of that 42,850 that's left. And that doesn't include any specialized training. That doesn't include any additional training that we have to send our school resource officers to, detectives that we have to get updates on, firearms law updates, anything like that. And I usually budget for about another 20 or so hours per officer throughout the rest of the year. We're not gonna have money for that. Now, we can scrimp and scrape, but mandatory is mandatory. We're gonna be, dancing on thin ice with that.
Now, just looking at that line year over year, and
Yeah.
obviously 21 was a weird year and 22 was kind of not the most, I guess, prototypical years. But I see that it goes up and down, up and down. And I think when I look at, I don't know what the what's the 25? I see it says FY 24 actuals. I'm guessing that's 25. The heading says FY 24 actuals to 11/30.
Yeah.
That's probably 25.
Probably, actually, that might be 24. The 25 may have been shrunken down.
Meaning fiscal year 25.
Correct.
It's probably I'm assuming that's what.
Maybe, yeah.
So that's 17. So that's
Just a
So a lot of it-
partial year.
Yeah, that's 5 months
A
in.
lot of
You
it
can ignore that.
happens based upon when we do our
Yeah,
annual
that's what I'm
trainings
wondering.
and whether or not. We may have had to send an officer to an academy. Academies are every 5 months and they do 2 or 3 a year. Normally we do, since this is actual to 11/30. We haven't, that year did not catch our in-service training yet because we usually start that in February. So we'll do February, March, April, those months of all the training. So you'd see a big hit after that.
So do you have a rough idea of how much you've already spent on that for fiscal year 25? Because we have what? Well, probably don't have this month, but
They don't.
yeah. I'm just curious to see how it's trending.
Yeah, well, my next statement is going to explain how negatively it might be trending. So that line, as well as if you go a little bit further down, I'll just jump ahead just to kind of help you wrap your mind around it. The first light blue, professional development, tuition and meetings. We would pay police officers to go to the academy on both of those 2 lines. So it would be tuition, equipment, things that they need, plus their wages. If we have to send 3 officers to the academy, we're done. In both, the trend is gonna be so high when we will not have the money. It'll be zeroed out and well into the negative. The governor doubled the academy fees. And so
That's
just to give you an idea,
Balance in their budget.
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah.
It's roughly $9,000 a person. That's really, you're saying that number really is gonna cover maybe 2 people.
So I wrote it down somewhere. I think it might actually help. Academy tuition has doubled, so we'll be able to send 3 officers. It'll be $18,000. So that's more than the total budget for the professional development, so.
For
the entire
For the entire.
Exactly, and so the rest of the department, I have no money for any of the training done. And if we, and the academy that we are aiming for right now is in July, which means I wipe out my whole budget in the first month of the fiscal year. Again, we made these cuts with the hope and the assumption that, free cash, will finish some of this. But just like what Cheryl said and what Mike said and what you are likely going to hear from Scott and Annie, the four biggies, the four big budgets, we're all gonna be fighting for the same piece of the pie to try to just get us out of the red.
But you're the only one that's armed, so.
I am, and on the other hand,
Just wanna keep it in perspective.
Scott does have some heavy equipment, but.
That's right.
So, yeah, so that's an important point, but also at the same time, Linda and I have been working over the course of the past few years to really shave this budget down to what is needed. Because we really got to play better in the sandbox and move some of this money around. So she sat down with me, over the course of the last couple of years, I could show you my spreadsheets if you're really interested, but I do the officers' wages on officer by officer. I input what their percentage increase is going to be, their step increase, and I have it like to the penny. And it's so to the penny that last year was the first year that I have ever overrun the budget. And that was because we lost a couple of officers and we replaced them with veteran officers from other police departments. Our salaries are high enough. We were able to steal great officers and their wages were so much higher than the ones that had left. That little difference was enough to have us go into the negative. It wasn't by a lot, it was only by a few $1,000s. But the point I'm trying to make is that we are already bare bones. And so these reductions are, I don't use the word dangerous because we really don't know what free cash is going to look like. But I'm just very concerned that, as I mentioned in the first select board meeting, you have a balanced budget in front of all of these departments. But I fear that we are not going to finish it balanced. And I can tell you right now that I probably not finish it balanced.
Just going back to the staffing levels, you said there's about 3 open right now?
I have 2 open and I have 1 officer resigning at the end of April, early May. Sorry, he hasn't given me the resignation yet, but he's let us know that he's going to be resigning.
So those wages, are they captured in the full-time officer
They are.
wages? Okay,
Yeah, so there will be savings, yes.
okay,
Sure.
so
I know where you're going. I'm just like,
okay, but you,
we don't replace that.
that's not always optimal. That's, well, we have an open position for a reason.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. And that's the other part of it. With those positions open, in order to make sure that they stay safe and keep just 2 officers on the road, the overtime, just like Mike said, it's gotta go up because we're gonna backfill it.
Or we gotta fill these positions quickly.
This fill them as quickly as possible. Now, we already filled 1. The problem is that we filled it with a person who needs to go to the academy. So he's no good to me until December of next year.
So, and is that cost of him going to the academy, is that already incurred? Or is that in this budget?
No, that's the one that starts in July.
So that's 17,000.
It's 1/3. 1/3.
Well, it's just one. It's just one, and we're still in the application process, so if we can steal people.
Can we stand
one,
outside the
then I don't have to
academy?
Worry about,
What I'm saying is that it's that money's already spoken
oh yeah,
from,
okay.
So, but too, when you're looking at the wages and you are trying to project your wages, these are on a certain probably step. So you have like these other veterans that you put in there and they were close. So now all of a sudden you've lost a couple or you might lose some. If you replace them with someone that hasn't even been through the academy yet, my feeling is their steps will be much lower And so you will not end up going as high on the wages, but you will overrun the
It's gonna be a
training.
wash.
You are exactly right.
It's
Yes,
gonna be a wash.
yes,
It could be a wash, and the other thing is that, you know. We have no problem cultivating officers, you know, we hire based upon personality, and
Yeah.
so if it's a young kid. Like the guy that we hired, he's already dispatches for us, we already know him, he loves the department, we
Yep.
love him. You're right, I can absolutely start him off less than the person that left, that's a win. Then on the training side of things.
Yep.
you know,
It's a one-time, I mean, it's an
Yeah.
investment.
It is.
Yep.
It's a one, but it's a short.
Well, they have to go to the
1 year.
academy every year, though. They have to go to the academy every year?
No,
Just the once, okay, and then it's the
They have
other
to do
training,
50 hours
the
of
other
training.
training, it's the other 50
Okay.
hours,
And we
okay.
want to keep them.
Right.
And then they- I mean,
Yes.
some people leave.
Right.
Amy, you may be the only one that was on the board at the time, but I know that a few years ago, I did a presentation about the cost of replacing employees as
Mhm.
opposed to retaining them.
Mhm.
It's not even.
So we gotta do it,
Don't tell me.
you gotta go outside you gotta go outside the academy with a pickup truck and do a,
We're trying it all.
you know,
We're
get
trying
the
it all.
smoker and, you know, do a little, like they do at the football games, you know?
Yep, we're already,
Right.
we're recruiting from, you know,
Join our-
18-year-olds, you know.
Yeah. So,
You
okay,
get
but
started in high school.
I guess, I mean, if we absolutely know, you know, if we don't get free cash. I mean, it's like we're going in saying, okay, this is the budget and it's balanced, but we really know. We're in for whatever, I'm gonna pick a number, $25,000 or 40,000 or whatever it
Or
is,
whatever,
okay,
whatever.
whatever it is. I mean, I realize we're doing this to be budgeted, you know, but I also still feel like it's like, we should just tell people what it is. I mean, we're gonna have to pay for it down the road.
Bigger picture, it's.
Yeah.
like, You know, Linda,
I mean,
Or it's gonna mean less
and
less police.
right, I mean, I just,
And it ties in with the ambulance situation, and it ties in with what you're gonna hear from DPW and what you're gonna hear from from the schools. So it's a bigger picture, you know. I think the goal that on the 14th or whenever you all have your vote and make your decision on the budget and any adjustments you might make. I think the point that we really want to get across to you, across the whole budget, is that the decisions that you make for FY 26 really have to be made more with an eye towards FY 27.
Yeah.
Because we were, you know, I mean, you know, that's really what we're. Especially, you know, with your ambulance service, right? So we talked about it earlier. I don't want to talk about it without Mike here, but it's coming up. So 400 and some odd $1,000 for $430,000. That decision on whether or not to continue that service, BLS or fire department, whatever it is, retain those employees needs to be made with an eye towards what the plan is for FY 27, because the only funding source for that is stabilization. It's nowhere else. So if you
without.
intend, so that's the point.
26.
that for-
Oh, right.
for 26,
Okay.
you basically just buying a year. And then
Mhm.
if you intend on moving towards override to cover those costs. That should help, that should. Influence your decision for this year. If you have no intention of going down that road.
Right.
Then what are we doing? You know,
Well,
so,
reduction of services at the end of.
well, that's what I'm
It
saying.
needs to be one less police officer, whatever, one shift, whatever, it's gonna add up.
Right,
Yeah.
and as you, and but here's the problem. If you're talking about $1 million. You don't have $1 million in easy cut across town. Not without seriously noticing that.
Right.
And that's, you know what we're looking at.
I completely agree. If we don't have a plan for 27 and we're just going to do 26 to the fullest.
Yeah, I agree.
Whatever we're gonna do for 27, we probably back up and start doing for 26 and our wish would be that we do the best we can for 26 and then look at getting more, I would probably support going for additional funding for 27. But that has to be something that the finance committee and select board, we would like to see decided even before the final vote on the 26 budget. It has to be, we know that if this is our 26 budget, 27 will be higher.
So,
And if we had an $825,000 increase in revenues this year. 825,000, we say doesn't go very far.
Yeah, no big increases in labor and insurance and just,
This year, it has gone far. Other years, that's just what we had and it was great.
Right.
But this year,
there's a trend here.
with the hit in the retirement.
Right, and
and
we-
the
and again,
insurance,
we
just
still
got-
don't-
We got just knocked.
Yeah, and we don't know how knocked we're gonna be, and, you know, in 3 months, we could find something else that closes because of, you know, businesses, offices.
Yeah.
You know, I'm starting to hear people who are, you know, on federal contracts that are being canceled, they're not even federal employees. Businesses are starting, you know, this is gonna roll down, you know, you talk about trickle down.
Yeah.
It's gonna be raining.
Well, I mean, you know, like I said, the governor, you know, he has already done two things right now that affect. What we're doing here just for the PD, you know, we've got a grant significantly hacked. And, you know, the increase in the training costs and everything, so you're gonna have to pick those up.
What's the turnover rate on your cruisers? Meaning after so many, you must be, after so many miles, you say, okay, it's not something that can be used as a cruiser. It might be something for traffic control for construction on the roads.
I mean, we've gone well over 100,000 miles with our cruisers many times. We try to keep it around 100,000. Accreditation standards are 80,000.
Mhm.
We go well past that, even though we're going for accreditation. Probably 5 to 6 years, just like the ambulance situation, and then we will actually roll that cruiser into. What you just said, the detail line, so that we don't have to put line time on good cars
Mhm.
for this entire job that's going on out here.
Right,
And we'll save it for like another 3 or 4 years, so we don't have to touch anything new.
so you're almost budgeting every single year for a cruiser every single.
That's what we did a few years ago. We said just one a year to keep them new so that we don't have to keep going back and.
It keeps it out of the capital.
Yeah.
plan.
and,
Okay.
and since he's brought it up, I would like to see if we could possibly pull it and put it into the capital on the warrant and borrow for it. So then you would be able to adjust and make these numbers look,
It's
A little
always an
bit.
alternative, but every few years we go back.
well, I know, but, well, same thing with the OPEB,
Right.
right? Same thing with the OPEB, and but
We're very flexible.
right now, I'm thinking, right now, we need to try to do the best we can to budget. And we're cutting the schools or cutting, not that we won't use it, either we can borrow for it now
Mhm.
and put it in the capital. Or we could put it towards the free cash in the fall, but we're stuck with, you know, cutting a lot of the schools and saying that's for the fall, right? And that's in the anticipated free cash, so we're gonna say. So just follow me here, like the 137, if we move that and borrowed for it. The other one is, can we borrow for some of I hear a lot of people, we're talking a lot about some of the software that we need. That's another thing that we've borrowed for in the
But
past,
that's an annual expense.
That's maintenance expense.
Yeah.
on some of it.
Yeah.
I didn't know if, we haven't got
Yeah.
the things yet, and I know like,
I know
down the road is-
assessors we're talking about is an annual fee.
maybe not the
Yeah.
assessor, but
Yeah.
there are others in here that I see are going up a lot in software, so I thought, maybe those can be moved to
Yeah.
capital.
So the reason that we did move it into the budget is to
Yeah.
essentially trying to guarantee a cruiser purchase every single year.
Mhm.
And it was something that was in the budget, was removed from the budget, was put back into the budget, and we just keep going back and forth.
Okay.
And the other thing is that 137 that you see, that's including, that's including all of our maintenance as well. So if you look at the top, the 112 is three different things. It's a cruiser, if you look right at like on the top sheet there, no, on the color one, yeah. The bottom green that says 112,000,
Mhm.
that is a cruiser purchase,
Okay,
and that is payments for 2 cruiser leases.
oh, that's
because when
including the
Carolyn was
leases,
here,
yeah, I remember the
she wanted
leases.
lease cars, so we leased 2.
So it'd only
cars.
be 112 that you're looking for.
It would be less because we would need the lease payments in there to make sure that those go through.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
paying
the
for-
lease
It's
is,
the third and fourth year of
From.
of two leases.
2 leases.
When does that expire?
they're 5-year leases.
Oh,
Yeah.
And the only reason I would say. That putting it as borrowing probably wouldn't be the right thing, because it's really, by the time. You're gonna be making these payments, you're gonna be paying interest. And by the time you pay it off, it's already junk.
Yeah, the depreciation of it, it's not worth it as
It's
to
one of the reasons.
what you're
that we
paying.
stopped.
Yeah, we're gonna be, like,
I'm just right now looking at these numbers and these numbers scare me. How are we gonna balance? And
Right.
if we have to put something and say, what is it that we're putting, we have to decide like what we're gonna present to the town. And
I think it's 82.
is it 82?
cruiser. Yeah, and it's really consumable, because you're burning it out.
One, somebody didn't actually challenge one year, I did when I stood up at, and had to, you know, every single year I had to explain why we need a cruiser, how many cruisers we have.
Right.
What
I
kind
can
of shape
remember
they're
those
in.
discussions.
And then
Yeah, yeah.
someone said, that's a consumable, that's not a capital item, you should not have that on the capital.
Right.
So that was another one of the reasons why we moved it back into the budget.
I mean, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I'm not sure that it was legal to ever be on it based upon what a capital item is considered, because we used to buy bullets and everything on there and.
Well, that's not
Just-
capital.
No, it's not.
In cruisers,
It's-
I think Amy is right in the sense that it's a large capital
Yes.
purchase.
Absolutely.
But however, that are operationally, what you're really doing with it, it's like, you're trying to pay, make installments on tires.
Right.
Yeah. That's my issue is my issue is a lot of this money that we need to balance it. The bottom line that we need to balance is we're going to be pushing off for free cash, right? A lot of it. And that's kind of, and Mike had a good point. It's like, it's what we're doing is you are a priority, right? Didn't we say that's what we mean by anticipated free cash? You're a priority in the fall. Soon as it comes in the fall, you're the priority. And I'd rather put something as, when I'm looking at what are the priorities, I want to make sure there's no people in the priorities. Like, what are we putting in as a priority? What are we putting in or using the free cash for? And it can't be people, and it can't be health insurance, and it can't be certain things like that. It
Right.
could be piece of equipment or something else.
See, Amy,
This compression,
Yeah.
right?
But
But it's financial compression that we're gonna be, you might not be spending that money specifically on it, but it's good, just pushes them all. Just pushes, it's just like pushing, a stack of, you might be pushing this piece of paper, but it's also pushing this bottle of water at the same time.
Well, so we were taking $80,000 cruiser, just East Shore with 80, and we say, well, we're gonna pay it off, 20,000 a year. That's 20,000 you're gonna need in your debt and interest, but 20,000 is less than 80.
Right.
So, I mean, you're still going to, and you're not gonna need it in this year's budget. So what we're doing is pushing that off
But then next
to the
year,
next year.
it's 40.
No, it's only 20.
No.
You add another
You
cruiser.
have to add another cruiser.
Yes, for another.
Once we start the president, and we have to get it through town meeting to vote on.
At some point, it's the same amount each year that we're borrowing.
How many cruisers do you have?
Yes, you're.
We have, 7 line cars, so 7 that get used every single day.
Yeah, so maybe it's not 7, but because some of those, they extend their lives, but you're gonna be paying 4 or 5.
We're coming out a little bit ahead for a couple years. Okay.
But it's not a lot.
I understand, yeah, I mean, I understand the concept.
It's gonna catch up.
And it will, and the other part of it is that, if I'm being completely honest, selfish. Asking for a cruiser every single year at fall town meeting was the bane of my existence.
Yeah, no, I
Lovely.
So painful. Every single year having to explain, I mean, like, I used to go there with a PowerPoint, because that's how much information people have on the cruiser fleet. It's why
Yeah.
we spend a half a page on my yearly annual report explaining the cruiser fleet.
Is that why the office supplies keeps going up? Though?
No. But.
Let's keep this in perspective here. Yeah.
That line currently is, that was, based upon current spending.
Okay.
I made a request of $78,000 for that line because that's literally to a penny what I need.
Okay,
That covers all of our computer programs, like Amy was talking about earlier, our telephones, emails, payroll, scheduling software, criminal history data systems, grant writing services, maintenance plans for all of that data. And Linda and I went through that line twice and cut it back to 68. So I am about $10,000 short for my computer services that I'm paying. We already went over the professional development and the dues. Those are the last two lines are those two dark blue ones, the other police supplies and the uniforms. Those are the other police supplies one is basically everything else. I buy paper, ink, battery backups, bullets, stamps, anything that the entire department needs is what comes out of that line. This year at current spending, I will spend approximately $22,000 out of that line, and we cut it to 16 for next year. So I can manipulate that. I can dance around it a little bit. I don't know how much. I don't know if I can dance around it by $9,000, but we'll see. And the uniform one that is combined with it, we went over the officers earlier. It costs probably between $4,000 and $5,000 to outfit them completely for the academy, all the equipment, everything they need, which leaves about $9,000 for the entire rest of the police department. That line currently, as it stands, is my budget every year for the officers for their equipment line. So $9,000 is just not gonna be enough. And I say all that to just give you, this is kind of a snapshot of, like I said, what you're gonna hear from Annie, what you heard a little bit from Mike, and Scott. The dispatch one, we can go through the whole thing. It's really kind of more of the same. The dispatch line, the dispatch total budget increase is only, what was it? $9,000, $5,100. It doesn't include the wages that they negotiated, so. And you have to keep in the back of your mind that across all budgets, anything that was negotiated, fire, police, schools, town hall, municipal union, that is not going to be in the budgets that you see that they put in front of you to go over those additions.
do you have any good news?
What's that?
Is there any good news?
Well, the good news is that I think there are options, there are ways out, but I think we need to take a more dynamic approach. We can't sit on our heels anymore and wait for businesses to come in to save the day with a new tax rate or a housing development to come in, and we can't. And as I said earlier, I mean, I know it's easy to say from a high level. It's hard to say, but it's easy to hope that you can make reductions across all budgets, bring us back to where we need to be.
Yeah.
And Linda and I can dig deeper if you want and put together what it would look like if you did go that far. But I just don't see $1 million in salaries not being such a change for this town. And the unfortunate part about it is that the people will be gone before we realized what has changed.
But the thing is, I almost think you need to do some of that and put some of that, because I think without an override or without going into some of this, we cannot keep we can't use this anticipated free cash. We can't budget like this.
Yeah.
And so we need to, yes, you need to, but the only way to get this to pass is you have to bring it to the taxpayers
Mhm.
and they have to vote for it and it has to pass.
Right.
So not necessarily, I mean, obviously, we need to have a plan B if it doesn't pass.
But this is Plan B.
Well, this is not gonna, this is,
Well, so that's, and then I mean, you can go into the whole timing of it, and I think that's gonna be part of it, right? We wanna make sure that we get through annual with what we have. And then formulate a plan and take the time needed to educate folks on what we're looking at. And you can put something in front of them as to exactly what you're asking for. Do you want an ambulance? Do you want, do you want salary cuts across town? Whatever it is, and you can do that pre-fall town meeting. And that's your backup. Your fall town meeting would be your backup as to what cuts would then need to be made. You can do it between the two meetings while still educating the public as to what you think is appropriate. And that might mean, sorry, cut. And if that's the case, then that's the case. But again, I don't see it.
You know, you're saying cut, but how about just not so much spend? I mean, we've seen in a few years, DPW spent almost $900,000 on a pump truck, a fleet of vehicles and an excavator. 3 years later, they're looking for a bigger excavator. Is there a way of, rotating a cycle if within each department, unless it's a dire need like the tanks, which they were saying 6, I thought it was $9 million. Yeah, I thought it was 9, but
Three of it's gonna be coming.
Three was for a grant.
okay, that's what I was wondering with that number, saying, okay, you hate to pinpoint as to saying, because everybody's going into this cookie jar. And it was said by the select board, last week, they've let the spending go. And to say, okay, this is maybe in your cycle for water and sewer or DPW, you can budget for this. Okay, we might need to hold back on maybe fire. And then after, because with the revenues that we have from this town, our trouble should be what color fire department we want for a truck, red or yellow, with the money we have coming in, instead of spending as much as we've been spending. How much free cash have we been
Let the
doing?
spending go. I don't,
Well-
what are you talking about?
The select board last week, they said themselves that it was this previous board and the present board and the previous board has let the spending go. They said, they said, that was the very first thing that was said in the meeting.
No, I didn't hear it either.
I didn't hear that. That
I mean, they're spending too much.
Well, I don't know if they're spending, they're allowing too much spending going or something where they're allowing, it's, everybody has their,
When we were talking about the enterprise funds and the.
Yeah, that's what they were talking about.
is that what that was?
They were talking about the fact that we have undercharged for the enterprise funds. The sewer has not been charging what it should have been charging. We are out of money in the reserve account. It's down to 24,000 or something at this point. It was 27.
They let the.
It was 27 at the meeting 2 weeks ago. I think it's down to 24. I talked to Scott earlier today.
Yeah,
We have
Is there a way
100,000
that
in
we
water.
can just not?
It's
let
not
things go
spending.
out of free
No.
cash? I mean,
That's not free cash.
That's not free
no,
cash.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying with the money that we've been spending, that we had 800,000 last year, and then now we're at 600,000 for the anticipated, free cash that we're using. That number seems to be going lower and lower. And I know it's tough because contracts, wage increases. I understand that's something we have no control. That,
Sludge.
Insurance didn't help at all, I'm sure. All those things, unexpected things that we have as a town, no control over. It just seems like it's going deeper and deeper and deeper.
Mhm.
And I know things are costing more and more.
well, I'm just sorry. I think to Peter's point is that it, when you go and look at, I think when we looked at that debt service, right? And you saw how that has become a larger and larger portion of kind of the budget, the expenditures. It's because the pump trucks, this building, the library, all of those bonds, those are, they all add up. And then DPW, they have their own
Yeah.
You know, they have their own spending. Now, and then on top of that, again, to reiterate his point, all of the stuff that we've gotten needs to get maintained.
Mhm.
Right? So it's not to the extent that things have gotten out of control, but the decisions that we've all made as a town, not pointing fingers, everybody's decided this. It's impacting us now because you gotta go and pay for these things.
Right.
That cruiser needs tires. That pump truck or whatever truck needs to get an oil change or bearings or whatever, you know, new back motor or something like that. So it's all things that that we've decided, and it is impacting the budget in a much higher way than I guess it has historic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, and borrowing costs have gone up, that some of those rates, what we were paying,
I think that's more expensive.
everything's more.
Inflation,
Yeah.
and we just, you know, and a 2.5 override annually, if inflation has put us over the course of the last 5 years.
10%, yeah.
15%, we only went up 10, you know, it's a lot of money, but I think to what Peter was saying, I guess, really. The best way I can answer that is to say. To what, you know, to Shardul's point, I guess, is that. Everybody has a different opinion. All of these purchases that you're talking about, all of these expenses have come before finance, have come before the select board, have come before town meeting. And we have decided as a community, as a town, on almost every level, what was important and what we're gonna spend our money on. And so if you trust the department heads to tell you that I need this, even if there's disagreement, generally speaking, it was, yes, all right, buy it. And you may look at that and say, no, if we had not bought that thing, we'd have $300,000 more to play with right now. You very well might be right. If you look at the situation that we're in with the ambulance. We have currently spent $937,307
But
to get to where we are at right now.
we also have a full-time fire department.
This is the point I'm saying, that you may look at that and say,
You've been-
"Boy, if we had that $1,000,000, we would be fine." But we also would have one firefighter on duty and our poor fire chief would have no hair.
Right.
Or
a heart attack.
I guess, or a heart attack.
Or get
So,
hurt.
again, I hate to keep using the same language that Linda and I used the other day, but I think it's more of a philosophical issue here. If you trust the department heads to tell you what they need, regardless of some disagreement here and there, we have all decided as a community that, what was it, 2 years ago, we bought, I know you didn't want the vac truck. I remember you stood up.
No, absolutely. And it only because of lack of
600,000.
maintenance for $600,000 for
Right.
someone not
And you said,
undercoating
Right.
something that we've had, and
a lot of money, right?
that's a ton of money,
It's a ton of
yes,
money.
because of lack of
So,
maintenance, and that's
exactly. So
frustrating.
$600,000, and we think, man, again, you know, I wish we had that money, but. You know, somebody else stood up and said, if my septic
Well, we haven't even
Yep.
spent that money.
flows.
But the thing is, we haven't even spent that 600,000. It was borrowing.
Just more of a general point that
And-
I understand where he's coming from. And my hope is that this committee and the select board will allow each department head, and Linda has put together, honestly, I think. I'm proud to just sit next to her and be a part of what she's put together for this budget with what we've had.
You both have,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
time and effort, you're
Yeah,
both,
and-
both of you.
This book
And
is
may I
impressive.
interject, for perspective,
Tremendous.
those are capital items. So it's not like if we hadn't bought a $600,000 vac truck, that we'd had $600,000 that year to throw into the budget.
I think the philosophy,
it's a
I think to Pete,
Yeah.
I understand that it adds to our overall expenses, but it's not apples to apples, you know, like we're buying a $2 million ladder truck. It's not $2 million, oh, we canceled that, we have $2 million more to spend in our budget.
Now we can.
Yeah, we don't have to.
there is a philosophical what do you call it, discussion about future expenditures.
Sure.
And is this, because we are getting, again, this building, it costs money.
Yeah.
You know, everybody loves this building.
Yeah.
I think it's a great resource.
Yeah.
But it's not just that you signed the bond.
Yeah.
And you took the money, you gotta go and
Yeah.
maintain it. You gotta go and heat it, you gotta go and do all these.
And you're gonna hear from DPW that we don't maintain.
No,
We do
Not
not
what we should.
maintain buildings around here. We just built 3 brand new buildings and we do not maintain them. We fix what breaks.
and we don't put down, Jane had said about reserves. We don't put down a
We don't have a
replacement.
reserve account.
We don't have a reserve account. But the other factor, I think. Again, to the point is that we've done all these things and we need to go and say, are we gonna continue down this path?
Yes.
Because if we continue on this path, we buy more new stuff, build more new buildings. This issue isn't gonna
Yeah.
go away. It's gonna get,
That's great. So
it's gonna grow
That's the-
exponentially.
that's the thing. There is another side to what I'm advocating for, right? I'm advocating for making sure that we don't lose any staff and being able to complete the budget annually in the black. The other side to that is Peter's point, right? If we cannot do that, if we're not willing to do that, we're not willing to do an override, we have to be willing to go the other way.
The thing is, to your point, there's not much you can do. There's not much.
I don't think so.
I agree with you. I don't disagree with you because it's not like we can go and sell the back truck and recoup. We're probably gonna be underwater. The reality is based on what we owe on it.
Then we'll need the back truck.
Just not with the back truck, yes.
To get us out, right?
Then we'll need it. No, we haven't paid it off. The thing is that, all of these things, we're not gonna be able to just slash away and make any, we're talking about maybe gaining 30 cents on the dollar in terms of if we're lucky on some of these. I think we have to come to a kind of a rational adult realization where we are.
So you suggested the question, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
was gonna just jump in here and say that, we touched on this before and I'm gonna rehash it from other meetings as well. But things like, as you say, the back truck, everything we buy, we have to maintain. And the buildings we've talked about, as Jane has mentioned, we've talked about it before that at the municipal building committee. There's formula out there to say, you have a building that's this size, it's this use, that is this old, you should be count on X amount of percentage points per year of in value that you're gonna have to maintain that. We don't do any of that here. The same is true even with staffing. We're in that we don't, we talked about including things like, in addition to the wages, the benefits and the OPEB liability down the road, that these things have to be built into the cost of every time we get a new thing, whether that be a vac truck or a new building or new staff, there's overhead involved, the soft costs that, if we don't take into account, they come back and bite us. So I would like to try to, as we move forward, try to build some of those things into the budget so that we're not always clawing and scratching. Unfortunately, I know most of those accounts are usually the first ones get rated in hard times. Your set asides for building maintenance, et cetera. But I would like to try to see that, going forward, eventually we can start incorporating some of these longer term costs associated with these new acquisitions.
Well,
So the other thing I just wanted to point out is a lot of the spending, a lot of like the big ticket items in the spending, yes, it was done through town meeting and then after on a ballot, some of this spending. And then even some of it, we'll have a budget, but then people leave in between budget seasons. And they have to, sometimes we get new people, sometimes there's some negotiation, that's all done through the select board. The other thing is all done through the select board is all the union negotiations. And all our job is really, how I see it, is we don't spend, we're just trying to figure out what bucket to take it from. We're not here to say what we're spending. We don't have any authorization to cut something. We're not giving people jobs. We're not saying hire this or hire that or do this. It feels like all we're doing is trying to take what's given and say, okay, what can we do with it?
Well, we can be, but we're we are an advisory.
an advisory and recommended, but we don't spend.
We don't spend, but we tell, we do go and as a finance, we do have an understanding of some of the debt, like the debt expenditures, the capital expenditures. Yeah, we understand and we ask, and I think our board asks very like more detailed questions.
We
than-
try to
without-
point out
Huh?
some things.
Without.
Yeah,
question, this board is-
I think- Yeah, I think,
Yep.
and we have the right to ask some of these questions,
Sure.
but the fact is that we are this kind of the checks and balances, and we do have a say in kind of how we need to go and look at it, because on a finance level.
Yeah.
We look at revenues, because we have that we have
Right.
that competency, and we can go and say, well, you know, your check is not balancing. There's not enough money coming in on one side, and you're
That's-
spending way too much on the other side.
Yep, that's all we could say, right? Or,
But I think it does have weight, and
Yeah.
when we sit down in town meeting, that people listen to.
I wouldn't undervalue your board at all. I think it's great, and without question, you're.
And you're cutting our budget too, right?
More cool
We
role.
have a.
It's one of those-
Since you brought up the thing with the maintenance, is it something because there's no money set aside for the maintenance, or nothing's been scheduled to being done?
It's not about effort.
No money set aside.
There is money, there's not. Just
Yeah,
not.
There's a lot of maintenance lines, I
Oh,
think,
Oh, I
in the
know.
buildings and the equipment. We have a whole maintenance budget, which is 490. But is it enough is really the question.
Andy's absolutely correct that we just don't budget appropriately to maintain the buildings. And it's, you know, it makes you nervous when you look around a beautiful building like this and the North Station and everything, and we don't have money to you know, re-wax the floors in these buildings or paint, you know, repaint the walls or anything. The actual maintenance
Yeah, our
of a
windows.
building is not done. When the drop ceilings start getting, you know, leak stains in them, they get replaced. That's what we do. We fix stuff that breaks. We don't do,
Some of that doesn't even get done.
oh, you take a look at mine.
Well, it's one of those things where, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Gary Berg goes out of his mind. If he comes in with Scott to do the DPW budget, you will hear it ad nauseum. The poor guy does the best that he can, but the money's just not there. A lot of our, I mean, honestly, a lot of the maintenance funds that we use are for, you know, dumpsters and to up to do the inspections on the elevators in the buildings, because that costs an arm and a leg now, things like that. That's where most of the money just flows out. We just don't do things that we're supposed to do.
You had mentioned that, Shardor, that, we need to sort of change it. Do we want to continue to do things the way we have been doing it? And I really think this year's budget is a marked difference from how we've been doing it in the past. That this does reflect a change in how we've been doing it, which is why, even though it's been questioned as, why do we put all the requests in here? I think it shows that what the difference between the requests and what's been given is, and yes, some of us call it cuts, others say, you know, what have I always called it? I said a
Adjustments.
decreased, an adjustment to your request adjustments. But, and yes, there are increases across the board, but just to show that that's a lot of requests that were not met. There were cuts in hours, and then when the extra amounts, the unfunded requests below the line are the additional staffing they would want, that various departments would want, that we are, and it's a real clear signal that went out to department heads, even police department, that the brakes have been put on this year. We really put the brakes on. And because we were short, I mean, because we only had so much money. So I can only take so much credit for doing it, but this was, I think, a real change in the way we approached it and what the end result was. I don't think it reflects, you've mentioned, Amy, that, we can't be spending anticipated cash. There will be a priority list, and some of it I'm just learning about when we hear the department heads speak about, I'm not gonna make it without this amount of money. Our intention when we gave a reduced budget to the departments, because we had to do that, we decreased the expenses they were allowed, is that they would apportion it between their own line items so that they would make it. It's not always possible, especially in a small department. Especially in a one-person town hall department, that you only have so much flexibility. There are things that you have to have. So certainly in hearing that there are some holes that have to get filled or they're not going to make it, that will begin a list. And I wouldn't have called it spending anticipated free cash, because let's say we don't have any, they're still gonna have to make it on what they have. This is a budget that the intention was that they will make it through 26. And if we hear from department heads that we're not going to, well, that's certainly worth paying attention to and seeing if there's something different we need to do, or saying, let's revisit this in the fall. Which I feel is the best that we can say, but we are certainly open to suggestions that you may have. That's part of what your job is. Your job as finance committee is not just to figure out what pot this comes from because we need to spend it. You have a role too in formulating this. This budget book is step one. You are step two. And then select board goes to step three, and then finance committee, the town meeting is step four. This is a process which we started. Now, last year, this happened to be, the budget book made it all the way through and was what was voted at town meeting, which is very unusual, but it happened, and it worked out for us last year. It may not work that way every year, but I do get a little agitated hearing, well, we should spend too much, and we did, all this stuff.
You
criticism
did this
about the
perfect, but
past.
you're not part of the
Well,
spending either. You're just the
we
same
drove
boat as we
forward.
are.
Yes.
You're trying to figure it out.
That's right.
Yes, we're going through, believe me, we've been through a lot of exercises, but we really have to put our energy into looking forward and how we're going to work with departments and the other boards and town meeting as to how we're going to get the best budget with the resources we have available. Are we going to, does that mean is that a hard and fast? We're gonna have to reduce to fit in with that, the revenues that we have? Or is it going to be, we're gonna do our best sort of to increase those? And I think that's what Mike was talking about, going through a 2-year process. We're now in a process where if we end up using free cash in the fall, back on this budget, it's a sure bet we're not going to have the money a year from now for the 27.
Right.
So, and I see that.
And we're reducing our stabilization by a third.
And that's, yeah.
Well, are we-
That's for one budget. I almost kind of see that as a whole separate issue to deal
Yeah,
with.
that's a big issue.
It's a very big issue,
Yeah.
but it doesn't affect the assessor.
That's how you, no, but that's how you're balancing your budget. You're taking away a significant amount from
Well,
your stabilization.
Right.
And at finance committee, we gotta go and say, is that the most sound way
In that
of
scenario,
funding?
Yeah, and we're gonna put our recommendations in. That $552,000 from the stabilization, that's gonna have to also probably be on a warrant, listed, that's what we would move.
Mhm.
What is the plan B if we don't, if that fails, or if we decide not to?
Great question.
Yeah.
Right? So, and out of that 552, okay, maybe you can say 200 of it is that ambulance, right? If you said that, because that's what they were like kind of looking at, was ambulance,
It's really.
but
really
only the 200 of it.
Not even, because you're not even, that 100,000 that I said for capitalization, we're not even accounting for that in the budget.
No, you're not accounting
So it's
for it.
really about only 100.
So we got to figure out where to get that. I mean, it's not balanced. We have to figure out what to do for Plan B.
Yeah.
And I think if it's not approved, we're gonna be losing people.
Right.
I don't think that's a question.
Right, and because it's a special revenue account and we don't know what's in it right now, I'm sure we can easily find.
But it's not that, I just don't want it to be just those people.
No,
It's
I'm
across
saying,
the board.
my point is across the board. I'm saying we're gonna lose police officers, people in DPW, meaning to
Right.
make up $500,000 or $600,000. It's not one department. You know, because the majority of these expenditures, it's not like you're gonna find, it's gonna be hard, I should say, let me rephrase that. It'll be hard to find $500,000 of spending that's non-personnel related.
You've just crossed a new threshold with that. This too has just brought us into a.
Meaning that's like, you know, you're saying you're not gonna power building, basically, you're shut off power
Yeah.
in buildings to save on
Furloughing
electricity.
people,
So, yeah.
laying them off.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of, I don't think this, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any fat here. Without a lot of digging,
Well,
then
and
you're
so
not gonna
that's
find.
going back to the whole
Right.
trust
Yeah, yeah.
situation, right? Because if you take away the numbers in red, you know, your additional unfunded requests, those are your additions. Those are your, I need more people, I need more hours, whatever it is. Those are the first things we cut. That's low hanging fruit.
Right.
But the number is not, the number that we're looking for based upon, if you trust your department head to tell you that this is what I need to pay for my electricity and my emails, that's closer to 1 million. And then that's on top of it. So it's
One
one,
$500,000 plus a
That's-
million.
that's the
I see
point
what you're
I'm
saying.
saying.
It's actually,
so your.
the gap is
end
larger.
game- Your end point, yes, your end point is correct. We're losing people. But the 500 is, that's just fine.
no, I'm saying that's stabilization.
Yes.
Oh, you,
But we've claimed that to be on the fire and that's the
Ambulance.
problem.
The point I'm trying to make
Yeah,
is.
But no, but it's gonna include, the fire staff.
yeah.
Which were part of these staff increases over the last few years. I
Yes,
mean, you know.
that's true, because
okay.
we went from 7 to 7 to,
Yeah.
Right,
Yes,
so,
yes, something like.
so we doubled the
Yeah.
hours.
which
You have nine,
increased
you have 9 from.
health insurance.
We doubled the hours.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which increased
benefits and
It
everything.
increased
So
everything.
that's taken a big chunk. I mean, I don't, you know, so,
Oh, I'm not denying that's where a lot of it,
yeah.
Well,
we
Also, the
doubled
last
it.
5 years, you know, paying for these buildings.
Yeah.
That shows up in the debt and the operational expenses.
You know, aren't we at the higher, interest rate cycle right now in our debt payoff? I looked briefly at that, we're in the 5% range now, where we were in the 2%, first couple of years.
That's for future bonding, the future borrowing. The buildings are nicely tucked up and tucked into long-term bonds at our, 2 to 3% range.
Yeah.
We're good.
But every time we have, again, these staffing increases, whether it be, in town hall or at the fire station, there's it shows up in insurance and it shows up in,
Yes.
time off, et cetera.
You had to increase by 450,000 because of that massive increase, and that was a huge hit. And then the other thing you have to consider is the more we spend stabilization.
Mhm.
It affects your bond rating and for the long run. I wrote down something the other day that you should generally have about 5% of your operating budget in your stabilization account in order to keep good rating.
Yeah. We never would have spent any of that out of stabilization, except for our understanding, this was based on projections at the time, that it was going to come back. Any money that we've spent out of stabilization has been for the purpose of stabilization. For like OPEB, an alternate investment, we get more for our money in OPEB than we did in stabilization. So it was okay to move 50,000 over there, which we did, which we ended up, we're not going to be doing this year. When we put the stabilization in for 350,000, it was an investment that we were going to get back. only recently now, if do we have the updated projections that even, that, as we all heard last Wednesday night, was at the buy board meeting, that even if we go up to the full, ALS services, and, we were given the revenues, it's probably only going to meet about half of that expense. And that is not what we were
Oh, we're-
expecting 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm not, it's just a fact.
Yeah.
The fact is, we put in free cash and stabilization, expecting that would come back. This time, putting it in, it would be knowing that we're not getting it back. Now we have a different, now we have to, now we're at the point of, okay, we made the best decision that we could with the information we had for the last 2 or 3 times. Now, we may or may not make a different decision, but it will be a decision now based on the information we have now. Which is, we know that if we put that 500,000, I'm just gonna use round figures, 500,000 from stabilization into the ambulance budget this year, we're not going to get the money back. And we're gonna need 500,000 again the next year.
And
And we're
plus it's $1 million.
gonna need, we're not getting a return on that, and we're gonna need it again. So that is a cycle that we are going to hop on with knowledge that it's not going to turn out the way we had expected originally. The other options, which involve adding staff to a higher level where we could reap the benefits of higher revenues, that's not going to get us there either, because we're still going to come short, because the budget is going to be so much higher that the 770,000 that is anticipated is going to be funding a budget of about $1.3 million. So that's information we have now that we didn't have before. So what I'm going to be, and we've talked about what we need to make some kind of recommendation here at some point. Because we've been talking about this a few months, and only last week, had these figures in front of us and a decision to make, that if we are willing, and if the boards are willing to say, this is so important to us that we are going to back an override, so it's worth putting the 500,000 in out of stabilization to buy us the time to see if an override works, so that we can fund that ambulance going forward. If boards are willing to do that now, then we're justified in money from state.
I'd rather see almost the override in this, right now than
We
in
can't put
the.
it together.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, because
You don't wanna do that.
Right, I mean, if we, right.
Honey.
Right, it would have been great if we had this conversation 6 months
I
ago.
agree with you. I'd rather not even touch that money. But
Huh.
then what's gonna have to happen is that in fall meeting, we're gonna have to go and have something that replenishes that money, right?
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah,
based on the timeline,
I don't know.
I
but
just,
we're not gonna spend, the thing is, we're not gonna spend that 500,000 right away. It's gonna be on the back end, basically.
based on the timeline of when FY 26 starts, based upon
Yeah,
your May town meeting. I mean, technically, I don't know the legalities of it, but I don't know that you necessarily have to do it. I mean, you could pass this budget at Springtown meeting and then go for the override. But again, Amy, to your point earlier, that's your backup. What your backup plan is only stabilization at
That
that
is
point
when.
or landers. That's it. That's all you got.
yeah,
So you could pass the budget as it stands in May. Educate the public. June, somewhere around there, you have your vote, whatever it is. Based upon the beginning of the budget cycle in July, and then you don't have to touch stabilization, but again, you're losing the time that Linda was talking about buying. With using the stabilization, so I don't envy the decision you have to make, but the way I see it, those are the options. Springtown meeting is May 1st, which means you have all of the rest of May. And
March.
April,
In March and all,
April,
yeah.
yeah,
all of April.
all of April.
And then the expense of a special town meeting.
Right.
In June to do a vote.
Yeah. And then, oh yeah, and then I gotta deal with Jessica. She's gonna throw a stapler at me. Guaranteed.
So Linda, the free cash that we have left
Chief
that
will loan you a
has been
helmet.
certified
Yeah,
is
yeah.
how much?
He's got a couple
Probably, I
certificates.
think that's only the 16
Make sure it's
or the small one.
The 600 and something.
That is already been certified. We still have that left, you're saying,
What page is it?
Let me just,
in 22?
make sure. 632, 622, something like that. That was, you think I have this memorized in there? 686,000.
That is certified
Page 22
and that is certified.
from last year.
That's last year
That's last year.
and that is still,
That's the balance.
okay. And then,
We don't know yeah, we're working with, I have to talk to DOR. Our attorney is not crazy about this,
We're anticipating 700,000.
the 160 that I'm reducing knowing that we're reducing the FY 25 budget. She said, go ahead and reduce it, but let it roll into free cash and then you can use it in the fall. And I said, well, this committee is not gonna like that. But except that there is a difference between that and hoping that free cash comes in because we're putting that there. We're gonna say, we're not gonna fund OPEB. I'm not gonna do that, treasurers.
oh, they won't let you, they're not
They
looking,
may not allow a direct transfer of that right into the budget because we're crossing 2 fiscal years.
yeah.
So I'll do some more on it, but
So where would that money go then?
well, it would roll back into free cash, get certified, and we'd have to put it in the fall.
Okay.
So I would be asking
Yeah.
an allowance there for an intentional putting something into the free cash from our last year's budget, from current year's budget. So I would hope that
It's times. For different measures.
just, I was away a couple days. I'm just now remembering I'm supposed to follow up on that.
And that's not even, and that was, right now, that was 190 that we put there, but then you took some out because of, or I thought you
I don't know what you
wrote a
mean.
note.
Are you?
What was they're redirected,
Yeah, that's the 160.
the 160, but it was originally 190 for OPEB and then minus some
Remember 50 of it, 55 of it was coming out of state.
Oh, that's okay,
So
that's why,
it will-
that's
I
why.
wish it could roll back into free cash.
So we just didn't take the stabilization.
but
So
we
it
are
was,
both the
it was
same.
the 190 minus
Yeah.
the 55.
Right, then,
Yeah.
then plus the 25 or something for the program that I canceled.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So there's 55,000 that's going back into free cash, stabilization at least.
But we never took it out of stabilization.
Not yet, it was voted, but we're not.
Yeah,
gonna do
we're
it
just
since
not
we're
gonna
do OPEB.
Yeah,
So I don't think that has to roll back. I think that just stays there.
days.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
review of the time,
Is it?
You
oh,
need
it's
a,
pretty late.
yes, all right, you need a motion?
You've got things to
Unless you
do.
have questions, you can shoot me
Yeah.
an email. I'll be happy to answer everything, anything you want about my particular budget. And Linda and I will be at all the meetings for all the other departments as well for any added.
And I'm your liaison, right?
Yes, sir.
So we should have a meeting. Call you.
Sounds great.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second, right?
All right.
In favor?
Donald Trump.
Aye.
Aye.
And Andy says.
Aye.
Good night, everybody. Have a.
Thank you.
Pressing the red button